Gabriel. Oh, my goodness. Oh, that ball was caught. Marvin Mims.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Bryce Young looking, crossing route. And here's Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield. Best receiver on the team by numbers, and the running back still on his feet. And he will truck all the way inside the 10, down to the 7, 26-yard gain for the Georgia Tech transfer.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
From the 18-yard line, the throw in the middle of the touchdown, Michael Mayer.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
They go to the back of the end zone, caught this time by Rashee Rice. He was certainly in bounds on that occasion. SMU right back on top.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
And that's a guy that figures to get more time as they flip it out. Easy pitch and catch. Luke Schoonmaker. Touchdown, Michigan.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on a Friday afternoon. Hope you've had a really good week. Hope we send you into the weekend with knowledge and insight and information for both of us. You, our great audience, and also Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak. Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter here. So I was sitting there putting together the guest list even a little bit yesterday evening, and I said, we've had everybody you could imagine from UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and also Brigham Young. Play-by-play, players, AD, presidents, etc., from the majority of them. But we've discussed all this stuff about what's coming into the conference, what may the future be like, whatever. And so we have all four schools today representative in different ways, Cincinnati, Houston, Brigham Young, and also UCF, with kind of the theme of who's most prepared. We mentioned that yesterday with what UCLA, USC, and obviously Texas and Oklahoma. Who is the most prepared, and get it from perspective of those attached or in some ways involved in those four programs. And we'll have guests on that from 4, 4:20, 4:40, and 5:30. Also, Max Olson and Sam Kahn from theathletic.com and Paul Catalina's top 5 to close out the show today. Grayson Grundy for today at 3:45, a lot to get to. All right, here's the first story. Baylor and Duke. Anytime you say Baylor and Duke in men's basketball, you think about the Elite Eight in Houston, the charge, non-charge, whatever it is. In fact, I put up the tweet from John Rothstein who reported it, and the first response on my Twitter timeline, it was not a charge, or no, it was a charge. And Paul Catalina, you were at that game. You've told that story. You don't have to rehash that. But when you saw this, what were your thoughts?
That, especially based on the new rules, it's definitely a charge. But no, that Duke and Baylor playing again is great. And I mean, it's not Coach K, Duke, but man, Duke, they are loaded for bear for next year with Filipowski coming back. It's going to be one heck of a matchup. And Baylor's non-conference just year over year now keeps getting more and more interesting. I remember as Scott Drew was building this program, he would, you get occasionally like, oh man, they're playing Clemson or something in a tournament, or Michigan State's going to be in this thing, and they'd play one of those. Now, I mean, you're kind of surprised that they have to throw in a Prairie View A&M or something in there. The non-conference schedule is excellent. They've got the tournament at the Barclays as well Center, which is going to be really cool with Florida and Pitt and Oregon State in that one. So yeah, it's shaping up to be a pretty awesome non-conference schedule before. And probably an even tougher especially with Houston coming into the league next year. Big 12 schedule starts.
Yeah, I think to give people out there that don't know what you're referring to, the 2010 game between Duke and Baylor to go to the Final Four, and Quincy Acey was called for a charge. I mean, that was 13 years ago, so I'd imagine there's probably some people who either weren't even watching or whatever, or you certainly weren't watching this show because it didn't exist, and I know that not everybody out there is a Baylor or Duke fan, so that's what you're referring to, and that's one that still sticks in the craw of, I think, every Baylor fan that was alive back then. I think that might be their most grave injustice. If you ask them, like, what one play could have changed the fortunes of, the program or of the university. And I don't know, maybe you could also throw in, few others, like if Bryce Petty doesn't trip in Stillwater, or
right.
All these other things that could have happened. If Corey Coleman doesn't get the weird penalty in the Michigan State Cotton Bowl game,
face mask at the 3, yeah.
Yeah, but the Quincy Acey one is probably at the very top of the list because there was a feeling that caused the end result, which was a Duke win and a trip to the Final Four. Thankfully, that's not one that they've never overcome. They've been able to go on and win a national championship. It's not like that was a roadblock and then they never got around that, and that's the one that you still point to all the time. But it does still cause some anger for some folks, so I think it's cool. Anytime you get big teams matching up, and certainly Baylor's a big basketball team and a big program at the moment, so I think that'll be great. And I think that, when you started to see football have some success, you were wondering, like, what are some of these next steps that they could take, and what are some of the things that you do to get on a different level as a program. And I think one of those is scheduling. You start to play some of those teams that you want to be like or you want to be better than, and Duke is certainly a program that Baylor can look to and say, okay, this is a path to follow, and this is a team that we want to be on the level and be above. And so it's great to see them taking each other on. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and Scott Drew's doing everything imaginable, from recruiting high school players to the transfer portal, to putting guys in the pros now, which wasn't always a regular thing. Now it's almost an every year thing at this point. I think they're going on, like 3 or 4 years in a row where they're probably, I think, putting somebody in the draft, which was not the case. Now your scheduling's about as good as it gets. So, yeah, they're doing all the right things, and it's cool to see that.
Also today, Texas State got a quarterback. They got G.J. Kinney. Picks up T.J. Finley, former Auburn quarterback. Baylor has Texas State on their schedule earlier in the season, a non-conference game. So T.J. Finley goes from Auburn to Texas State.
Yeah, G.J. Kinney's been cleaning up in the portal. And T.J. Finley left Auburn with a very large chip on his shoulder. So I'm curious to see what that means for Texas State down the line. And they have Baylor early, but he really did feel like he had proven what he wanted to prove there at Auburn, and didn't get his fair shake. But look, he's playing for new coach. This is kind of the way of the world right now.
Yeah, I mean, good for TJ Finley to get a nice landing spot there. G.J. Kinney, I think, is going to make them quite formidable right away for the opponents that are more on their level. I think, as far as that Baylor game goes, that early on that could be, a little bit of trouble for the Bears just because you don't know what to expect. And I'd imagine that offense will be high-flying and ready to go. But, he'll have a nice choice between Malik Hornsby and T.J. Finley. They'll have a quarterback that's going to be, a threat and probably dynamic. So that's something that Aranda and company are going to have to prepare for. And, that's a nice pickup. I think he's going to do really well there, and just a matter of, how long he sticks around and what kind of success he can find early on. But I think as far as portal guys go that kind of fall through the cracks that maybe were on a certain level, like playing for Auburn and then not as desired the second time around, like that's a perfect landing spot. And he's a guy that can really clean up with those types of players. So he'll have, I'm sure, a fun little run there in San Marcos, and excited to see what he does with it. But hopefully they don't get off to too good of a start, because that would really put a damper on the beginning of Baylor's season. But they're going to have to be mindful of that game and not treat it as though one they're just going to walk over the Bobcats, because I think GJ does bring a little bit of swagger there.
Name-wise, recognition-wise, Texas State's quarterback room is pretty highly thought of, right, with Malik Hornsby and now with Finley. But now you got to go out and do it, and you have to have all the other pieces. And both of them coming out of the SEC, Arkansas with Hornsby, Auburn with T.J. Finley. This is an interesting story and a sad one. Iowa Wesleyan has been, they've been in football for almost 200 years. Hal Mumme invented what was the air raid, so to speak, at Iowa Wesleyan. They are shutting down their doors.
Yeah, Mike Leach was his offensive coordinator there, and also the SID. Their last graduating class had, or I guess it was 100 in the graduating class and 500 total students overall. So it's a very, very small school. So yeah, it's a sad story that anytime a college closes its doors, especially if you went to that college and it's just not there anymore. I don't think I really ever have to worry about that happening, because mine's a big, gigantic, state-funded institution. But it would break my heart if the high school I went to all of a sudden closed. If any school. I believe my elementary school when I was younger has closed. That's kind of heartbreaking. It's just
Dana Holgerson was a part of that staff too. Yeah.
Oh wow. And so it was the birthplace of some really brilliant football minds, and now it's shut its doors.
The air raid's probably as popular as it's ever been, right? You're seeing it all over the place. I know it was more popular in the 2000s as far as, that's when it probably got the most of its attention, when Leach was really doing his thing. But, you see it all over from, TCU to Riley or both Rileys. Now Garrett obviously is going to take it and spread it even further. But we see it all over the place, especially in this area. And it's now, moving into the Big Ten, and it's been at North Carolina and all these different versions. But, it's a place of history now that's going to be gone, which is very strange. And I can't even imagine what that feeling must be like, because you just don't think about institutions closing down like that. But I wonder how much had to do with the COVID interruption, or if this was inevitable anyways. I haven't had time to dig in and study the reasonings behind it, other than it being financial. But
COVID was a big part of it.
Okay, that figures then. And that's what the fear was that was going to probably wipe out some programs or wipe out some schools. And here you go. And they're not the first. They probably won't be the last. And that's an unfortunate side effect of all the damage that was caused. So, yeah, that's a real shame.
They had major budget shortfalls. I didn't know this was happening in 2018. They received a $26 million loan from the United States Department of Agriculture to use the school's campus as collateral. They then asked Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds for an extra $12 million in 2023 earlier this year. Ultimately voted to close the campus after its request was denied, and the USDA will take control of the campus, since that was the collateral for the $26 million loan. Other than football, a couple of other names. Alumna Arabella Babb became the first female lawyer in the United States who's an alumni of Iowa Wesleyan, and the first female commander of the International Space Station, Peggy Whitson, also attended Iowa Wesleyan. So a couple of notes right there. Today at 3:25, Max Olson, theathletic.com, had a tag team story with Bruce Feldman on tampering. As I read some on tampering, the transfer portal, NIL, and all that's going on, and mainly focused on the group of five schools getting just hammered left and right. And as I read about half of the quotes, I felt like I was hearing Jeff Traylor in some of them, because Jeff Traylor, UTSA, has mentioned that if in fact he had evidence, a text or whatever from a player that showed him about a coach that's contacted him, he would then just pick up the phone and call that coach and say, I have the text. Don't make me go any further. Don't make me get bloody with this. And it seemed like some of those quotes, I'm not saying any of them were from Jeff. It just seemed like it was, but it was more than Jeff Traylor. There were others involved in that too. So I'm not sure how much you guys had a chance to dig into it. Max will join us today at 3:25.
Yeah, I read the column. It was really, really interesting and compelling that he and Bruce Feldman did. It's not surprising, and I think the end is in the title, and that there's no way to stop it. I don't know how you stop it, because if your burner phones, a lot of this stuff isn't direct contact. There's maybe even fourth parties involved to where they wind around before it gets to that. And, it's a whole new world. I do think it's worth noting that, a lot of the guys you see, like in the portal, that are getting recruited, Zachary Franklin wound up at UTSA because Jeff Traylor was smart enough to see that this kid was a stud, right? And then he played his way up to the point of where everybody else has noticed him. And so now you've got a guy like Zachary Franklin who can now sit up and kind of make the deal he wants with whoever he wants to go to, because he's one of the best wide receivers in the country, regardless of level. And so now he's doing that, and Jeff Traylor's the one who suffered, and Jeff Traylor's the one who put in all the work to, reach Zachary Franklin's full potential. So it sucks, but there are guys, and you think about it, if you were under-recruited and felt that you were always good enough to go to Oregon or Alabama or LSU or wherever, and then all of a sudden you maybe want to go through that process that you didn't get wined and dined before, as opposed to, thank God I finally got this offer from a place and I can prove what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely benefits, as we pointed out. I mean, some guys don't belong at, Incarnate Word. They belong at Penn State. And, maybe that's not seen at first because the school he plays for, or the grades he gets, or whatever, but guys are getting a bump up, and financially it can be life-changing for people, and you don't want to take that away, especially because it was never given up until 2 years ago to begin with, outside of just being CD envelopes and lockers after the game and things like that to skirt the rules that weren't great rules to begin with, because they should have been paying players for, long ago. But here we are now. And it's dirtier than ever, seemingly, which is weird, because now you can pay players on the up and up in a very straightforward and pretty legal way, although some of it can get confusing when you talk about NIL and what this means versus what that means, and collectives versus, all that kind of stuff can get kind of confusing. But I just don't understand, if this stuff's all legit and on the up and up, why is it as shadowy as ever? Like, why are people crawling around the shadows? Like, it's weird when you bring up NIL and you bring up anybody's team, watch how defensive they get. They get super defensive, like, right away. And it's like, why are you it's not illegal. Why are you so defensive? But it's like, well, no, we recruit this way. And it's like, but it's not illegal. So but people get so defensive about the NIL and how much they're getting in the NIL and how much they're giving and how much they're receiving recruit-wise. And it's weird to me why people get so defensive. Maybe their brains haven't clicked over to the fact that it is legal, or maybe they realize that opens up a conversation where you do get into the still shady stuff that's going on. I'm not sure why, but there's no reason to be defensive unless you're just outright egregiously breaking the non-rules that don't exist. But I just don't... I don't like the fact that there's these coaches hopping around in DMs, in the middle of the night offering whatever they're offering to some guy. I just, I'm glad they're getting the money. I'm glad that guys have the opportunity to move and better themselves, better their families. I think all of that's long overdue. But why is it still as shady as ever?
I think it's because people, even though it's legal, even though people everywhere are doing it at all levels, because whoever gets rated out of the group of five that gets some cast off from Power Fives, or they raid the Division II or whatever, I think there's still kind of like maybe a fan base or fan thinks, well, wait a minute, you're acting like we're doing it differently, or we're doing it and it's wrong. No, we're not. Anytime we bring up NIL, it's because it is out there in the public. And so I still think there's a little bit of that that fan bases feel like it's that if you say that you're suggesting it's the cheap way to rebuild a team. It's the real way to build a team.
It's not the cheap way. It's a very expensive way. Actually,
well, cheap as
it's the shortcut way. Yes, it's a shorter.
There's nothing wrong with it.
You're still recruiting guys. So I don't know how much of a shortcut it is, in that you're not developing them the same way. Like, I just said, UTSA has developed the Zachary Franklin. Somebody else is going to get to now enjoy that for a year before he goes off to the NFL. But Craig, you would probably not be surprised at the number of texts since NIL started happening that we get on the text line where, well, when is the NCAA going to say anything about this? I'm like, they did. They're not going to do anything about anything. And because people still have it in their minds that the NCAA has power, I guess, and they don't. And that's why they're trying to redo the whole thing. But people still kind of have it in their minds like, oh, well, they're doing, Alabama paid this kid to come and play there. Okay, yeah, that's all it is. And part of that is that the reaction to things of, when Nick Saban goes and calls out Jimbo Fisher last year for the NIL thing, everybody thought that was him accusing Jimbo Fisher of doing something unethical. That was him telling the people in that room, Jimbo Fisher is doing this, and so you better give me the money so I can too.
We need to as well. So does that make sense, that kind of the reaction from fan bases?
No, it makes sense, but I also have an idea of why that also is as well. I think it's weird to see that response, but I think it also comes from the fact that this isn't NIL half the time.
No.
It's not NIL. They're not doing name, image, likeness. It's not what it was proposed to be initially. This isn't all a bunch of Livy Duns getting these clothing agreements or LSU's entire basketball roster on the women's side getting all the deals that they're getting now. I know Angel Reese has signed some NIL deals, and I think was it Flojae Johnson, I think, has signed maybe a deal or two.
So. And the stars that come in from Louisville.
They've clearly cleaned up an NIL, through the portal, and all that's fine. That's on the up and up. But I think a lot of the reason why people they're just used to the old way of things, where it just maybe still feels wrong. But I think also they don't want to acknowledge it as well because a lot of it isn't really true NIL. I mean, you can't tell me that just offering each guy $50,000 is, that's their name, image, likeness. Well, no, it's not really. It's just you trying to, replenish your linebacking core or whatever it is. And that's fine, but let's just call a spade and call it what it is and stop pretending like this is all exactly the way that it was supposed to be from the beginning. So I think that's also part of the reason why people shy away as well from just, feeling like it's 100% okay. But yeah, it's as messy as we all expected it to be, and it's not changing, like you said.
Well, tampering was part of the column that Max Olson wrote with Bruce Feldman of theathletic.com. Max Olson, Grayson Grundafer, Hans Olson, Brigham Young color analyst, Chad Brendel, Cincinnati writer, Joseph Duarte covers U of H, Sam Kahn, athletic.com on the Big 12, and discussing all this with him, and also Mark Daniels, voice of UCF, Paul's Top 5. One final note in the chat, then we break. From B, talent evaluations mean more now than ever. Wishing everyone that is in the portal a very good luck. All right, when we come back, we'll hear from Max Olson, the article, Tampering, and there's really not much you can do about it. This is 365 Sports. I was at Waco Custom Marketplace today. The reason why is I have everything I think I'm going to have I have a deep freeze and what I would want to eat for the weekend. But I went by there because I was looking for a couple of things in particular. But I was also next to a business that's right next to them, Award Specialties, to pick up plaques for our upcoming banquet to honor Academic All-Stars. So I walked inside Waco Custom Marketplace, and there was a sign for the live crawfish. It's too late for this week, but live crawfish, you can still get it for the next few weeks until it's out of season. $3.05 per pound for a 30-pound sack of live crawfish. Order by Wednesday at 6, pick up anytime after Friday at 4, and then also when they're open on Saturday. The butcher shop in the back was packed with people getting anything from bacon or what they were. I saw a pack of ribeyes. I saw someone with a big, huge, it looked like a baby size, a brisket. That's what they were doing. People were getting whatever they're wanting to cook this weekend for Mother's Day and maybe even looking ahead to Memorial Day. So that's what they have. The bakery was fully loaded as well. It was crowded, as you can imagine. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession? We selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time. Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's Jeep season at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals are hot. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $5,500 in total values, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with total values up to $5,000.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Max Olson is normally with us on Thursdays, but he was busy. And we know why, because he and Bruce Feldman, with a column, Tampering Confidential in College Football, it's inevitable and impossible to stop. We've had Jeff Traylor, among others, who have discussed it. When UNT's coach, Seth Luttrell, has mentioned that too. Joined by Max Olson with Craig and Paul, I'm David Smoak. Max, thanks for your time. This story was inevitable too. How much interest did you have as you kind of wind through all of the various stories?
Yeah, it's. I appreciate y'all having me on and talking about it. You know, it's one of those stories that comes from Bruce and I, both like kind of having a lot of conversations with people in the past few weeks, and like this is just like kind of the topic that kept coming up with people. I think part of that is because you have that spring transfer window, and yeah, there's not maybe a ton of like great players going in the portal at this time. But there's a lot of people who were very like nervous about this deadline and like, am I going to lose one of my best players at the last minute here? So I'm going to go into Tampa and we're going to like lose some really good players here who we can't really replace. So I think there was some anxiety about that in April for sure with coaches. And you've got obviously a lot of teams that are looking to fill their needs. And certainly in the age we're in right now, you're not just looking at the guys who are already in the portal. These schools are already evaluating players on other people's rosters. And, if you've got a collective, you're probably reaching out and trying to contact them in some way and saying, hey, you can be a starter here and make some money and things like that. So, certainly those two coaches you mentioned are great examples of there's a lot of, good programs at the group of 5 level, especially, that have lost a lot of starters and all conference caliber guys over the past 2 years here to the portal. And they know it's not just because those guys are trying to move up, as much as that's justified. They know that other coaches are getting in their ear and convincing them to leave.
Max, in the title of the column, it's impossible to stop. That's the thing I think that's got to sting the most is I don't know if there's any kind of way you could even attempt to regulate it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when you talk with folks about how it works and oftentimes it's kind of them trying to put the pieces together after they lost the kid of what happened here. How did this come together? And yeah, it's incredibly easy to communicate that interest. If you can find any third party, it could be the old high school coach or junior college coach, it could be the 7-on-7 coach, the trainer. These kids have agents now. There's agents who want to represent these kids who are happy to reach out to them and say, hey, I can help you get some money at this school or whatever. It's very easy to communicate that interest to a kid that, hey, here's the kind of number we're throwing around and here's how interested we are in you. And, we've heard lots of stories in making calls on this week from coaches who are like, yeah, some guy came in and tampered and got him to go into the portal and they didn't even sign him. Like they didn't even pull it off. But, even just getting approached by these guys and getting some sense that you're worth more, can definitely be tempting to go in and kind of go through free agency like that. So it's very easy to kind of get in these kids' heads. And then it's just very difficult to prosecute this stuff, to really have enough evidence and screenshots and receipts and all that kind of stuff to actually, get the NCAA to do something about it. And a lot of these coaches just don't. They'll take it to their compliance people and maybe have their compliance person call the other school's compliance person. But in terms of actually going after this, seriously pursuing NCAA charges and stuff, I think a lot of coaches, they either are reluctant to do it or don't really believe the NCAA would do anything if they turned it over.
Max, with the coaches that you guys talked to, was there anybody offering up any solutions on their end? Not so much as like the NCAA comes in and they fix things. We know that's not going to happen. That's a pipe dream at this point. But how are they trying to counteract? What kind of solutions are they trying to come up with on their own to try and curtail this as much as humanly possible?
Yeah, I think you still try to build a program where you are recruiting really good players and developing them, and you hope that the relationships that you have with them still matter. I've talked to coaches at Group of 5 schools who don't have that much money in terms of collective and NIL and things like that, but they're trying to raise it and they're trying to invest it in retaining their best players. I think that using that money to try to take care of your good players is way more useful than trying to buy any high school recruits or portal recruits, honestly. And so they're trying to raise the money and trying to invest that in their guys and show them enough love, knowing that that people are going to come for them, but maybe they're willing to kind of take a little bit of a discount to stay put. But yeah, I think it's in terms of truly getting it to stop. You honestly, you hope that you're close enough with your players that they bring it to you when it happens. And in a lot of cases, that's just not going to happen. The guy's going to, kind of line up where he's going to go and he's going to go in the portal. And honestly, by the time they enter, it's already over. You've already lost. And so, because you just don't see these guys come back to school very often. And so, you have to try to get ahead of this stuff way in advance and really nurture those relationships, especially when we're in December, January, and April when it's open season.
Probably one of the most outspoken, and I'm not saying any of those quotes were his, but we've had Jeff Traylor on a lot, and he has been very vocal about the tampering. He was able to weather the storm. Then all of a sudden, Zachary Franklin entered the transfer portal late in the spring. Is there also a part of any coach who might have evidence that someone's tampering that they themselves are tampering too?
What do you mean by that part?
Like if somebody is tampering with players of program X, isn't almost everybody getting some sort of a heads up on bringing somebody else into their program to fill the spots too?
Yeah, I think that's the tricky thing. I think that certainly like plays into, I think that plays into why we don't see people going public with allegations very often. Like you would think like these coaches are really frustrated. You would think that they take this stuff very personally. Obviously they invest a lot into these players and then they lose them. Like you would think they're calling out schools and coaches in press conferences and stuff like that. And like, it'd be hard not to, but I think there is a part of that in the coaches we talked with that like, yeah, there is kind of that like, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones a little bit, that like, if you want to be out here and saying somebody's doing wrong, you're inviting that scrutiny, and other coaches who might say the same about you. And so I'm not going to sit here and say every single coach out here and every school is doing it, but I think certainly enough of them are and feel like they kind of have to. And, everyone's just trying to hold on to their jobs and hold on to their players. And certainly, it's tough. Like it's tough. And that's where I understand that it might seem hypocritical to some people who read this stuff that like, well, these guys should put their name on it if they're that mad about it and stuff. And I certainly understand that perspective, but you also like, we gave them anonymity in this story so that they can kind of share what's really going on here, because oftentimes people are very reluctant to actually open up about what they've experienced.
Max, Smokey asked you about kind of the honor among thieves thing there, but
yeah,
how do they address this like openly at the coaches convention and just give an ethics seminar?
They certainly talk about it, but it's one of those things where it's like these guys all say, man, this is a big problem. But when you ask what's the solution, like, I think they say, well, yeah, stricter punishments would be good. We're all for that and stuff. But I, at the same time, like, how does that actually work? And who really is going to support that? Because, if it were just as simple as we've got this screenshot and we're sending it along, like I could see that. I could see like, all right, we've got some evidence, something should happen here. But there's also, as you guys know well, like just the pace of these kinds of investigations is not really, doesn't really work for this cycle and the way these things go. A kid goes in the portal and he's got a new school within 2 weeks. And so you just don't feel like the NCAA can do anything to stop a kid from going somewhere, even if that somebody involved with that program, tampered with the kid and convinced them to go in the portal or talk to them before they were in the portal. And so, in terms of like how these guys hold each other accountable, I think certainly the quotes from Pat Narduzzi were really interesting. And I know he wants to see more people speak up like he did, but at the same time, those guys kind of know they take a PR hit because it might not look very good. It might look a little bit vindictive to go after players that they lost or go after coaches that signed the guys that they used to coach.
Max, I was just lamenting how it's amazing. We went from paying players is bad to now you can pay, but now it's become shadier than ever, and it's legal to pay. It's amazing how that's worked out. But amidst that shadiness, did you guys get any real sense of how much of this is true NIL as defined the way that it began and what it was supposed to be versus what is just now throwing money at whoever, whenever, however? Is some of this, a good portion of this, or little to none of this, actual real NIL the way it was supposed to be, so there's really nothing to investigate versus, the complete opposite in what everybody's fear kind of was originally?
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing in this conversation with coaches. Like, I didn't talk to anybody who was like, these kids shouldn't be making money, or these kids are being offered too much, they don't deserve it, things like that. I think everyone is like starting to kind of like accept that they are worth it and stuff like that. I don't think people are trying to like say it's wrong of these kids to make more money by going to a different school. I think their frustration is with the contact and with, I think they want it to be more of a fair game where, no one is recruiting these guys until they enter the transfer portal. And so, yeah, in terms of certainly we hear lots of stories from these coaches about, pay for play, about this kid's being offered 6 figures and other perks to to transfer, and obviously they're hard for us to, substantiate and corroborate and stuff like that. It's obviously very hard for the NCAA to do the same. But yeah, I mean, certainly, like, there's got to be some deliverables in terms of the NIL deals that they're getting at these places. But in terms of dealing with coaches and collectives and stuff, yeah, it's certainly, like, it's very clearly inducement to transfer. And again, NCAA doesn't really know how to get their arms around this stuff unless people start turning each other in.
Do you have an idea of how many people or players who transfer are actually getting tampered with? Is there any? Is it 15%, 50%? Golly, there's so many players in the portal.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's hard for me to judge that, really. I mean, I think you talk with, you call a coaching staff, especially at some of these Group of 5 schools, and they can easily list off 3, 4, 5 guys that they know were tampered with. Now, do they not know about some other ones, or is it really just a small number of their best players that that's the case? I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and say, like today, a safety, Jalen Key from UAB, committed to Alabama after going in the portal. That's 200 Group of 5 scholarship players who are going to transfer to Power 5 players for the 2023 season. I'm not going to sit here and say all 200 of them were tampered with. But certainly there's a lot, and certainly there's like a lot of very good players there who believe they're Power 5 players and want to move up. And so that kind of makes sense that they probably would be looking to do this anyways. But certainly in terms of people reaching out to them during the season, honestly, I hear a lot of stories too of guys that, like, yeah, people were reaching out to them in December. They didn't go in the portal, and now they're trying again in the spring. Like, I think these guys are kind of dealing with this constantly. And, how much is it happening? Like, is it just the best players? Honestly, from the coaches I talk to, if it's like a starter, like, there's a chance that it's happening to them. It's not just these 4-star, 5-star, like everybody wants them as soon as they hit the portal. I've talked with coaches who are trying at their hardest to hold on to guys who are like 1-year starters who are like pretty good, who are being offered money. So I think right now it's just kind of a crazy market.
Well, that was Jalen Key, right? Like, he wasn't really a regular starter until last year.
That's right. But he's experienced, and he's a safety, and there's not that many safeties in the portal, and he's got the right, frame that people are looking for. And that's part of what's kind of crazy about this time is that, these schools will really find you anywhere. Like, if you're a school like Alabama and you're like, we want a 6'2" safety for depth or to start or whatever for our defense, then they can go look up every kid that's out there in the country and go break down the tape very easily of who they like and don't like. And I'm not saying Alabama did do this with Jalen Key, and I'm not saying they have to in some cases, but I mean, they're Alabama. But certainly they can go using PFF and all these resources they have, they can go evaluate and grade every kid out there. And either get them when they're in the portal or, figure out a way to convince them to go in the portal.
You got a question? John Bolster on our chat room made this comment. You are also burning a bridge to a job when you eventually are looking for one down the road. If you turn in another coach, that's a possibility. Yeah.
I think that's true. I think that, honestly, I talked with another coach who said, I'll never turn someone in because ultimately, as much as these things piss me off, like, I know everybody else is like trying to hold on to their job and feed their family and stuff like that. And look, I think these coaches have to realize at this point, some of these kids are trying to do the same thing. I think it's hard to fault them. I mean, there's lots of coaches who, throughout their career, it's like, why did you go from this job to that job? Well, I made a little bit more money and I got a better title. I mean, that's what they all do. So it's kind of, at the same time, you can't speak out of both sides of your mouth here. Like, yeah, it's frustrating when people come for your players, stuff like this, but it's hard to fault the player for taking advantage of what's in front of them here and trying to have a better opportunity and a little bit more money at the next spot.
Yeah, that's why it's an impossible argument to defeat right now, right? Is the loyalty thing. You just quickly point out, well, coaches do it, and there's just no answer to that. It's true. Like, yeah, they have that freedom of movement. They jump for money. They jump for better opportunities, and you can't argue with that when a player does the same thing. So I think that's where we always circle back to, and it's like, well, yep, it's what are you going to do about it? But Matt, I was just wondering, what is the kind of the balance? I know there's always the numbers about the guys who have gone up a level, but how does it balance out as far as the guys that go down a level? And this is kind of a two-pronged question because I don't know if you know that number. But with that in mind, your thoughts on TJ Finley ending up with G.J. Kinney at Texas State and also joining Malik Hornsby there as well?
Yeah, I mean, there is really, the more I follow the transfer portal and kind of track where everyone's going, you really kind of see very clearly the food chain that comes with all this. And it's not just guys moving up. I mean, certainly there's, these group of 5 schools can end up benefiting from these Power 5 players that bounce after a couple seasons, whether they just didn't earn enough playing time or had some issues or whatever it is. Like, you can certainly find some pretty talented players that it didn't work for them at the Power 5 level, but they're certainly good enough to be starters and maybe even like all conference type of players if they're willing to come to a G5 school. So that's the thing. Everyone also wants to like kind of maintain good relationships here, because you want to be able to, get those kinds of players when they go in the portal. And there's certainly some guys that can come down because they just like a TJ Finley want playing time, just kind of, maybe they've got a year left or something like that, and they just want to get on the field. You can get some good ones. And so, yeah, the majority of these these like Power 5 and Group 5 guys are still going to end up kind of moving down, whether it's to G5 or FCS. And so you can find some good ones, though. And I think Texas State is one of those programs that has certainly tried to flip this really quickly. In year one, you saw what they're able to do at Incarnate Word. And I think you have to have a lot of optimism about kind of their talent evaluation and what they're able to do there. So, I think that quarterback situation for this staff, I think I was pretty excited for that Malik Hornsby addition for them this spring.
Mm-hmm.
We just haven't had a chance to really see what he can do. Obviously, he's one of the fastest quarterbacks in the country, and so what kind of thrower can he become? But to add a veteran to that room in Finley, who's certainly motivated after Auburn decided to go in a different direction at quarterback and bring in Peyton Thorne, I think that's a really good competition, and certainly Texas State has been in need of great quarterback play here for a while now.
Well, Baylor's going to see one of the two or both at some point in early September, which I mentioned this a minute ago when we brought up the story that they have a more name quarterback room than Baylor does with Shapen. Of course, he has a name because of a couple years ago, and then Sawyer Robertson. So that's a little bit interesting. A couple of notes, and Max, you don't have to respond to them, but just the chat room is always really, really good. Pay the players, problem solved. Moss just said, pay them, make them sign contracts they honor, and the institution honors those contracts. We know that I don't know if it'll ever get to that because of something legal or whatever states recommend or whatever it is. But there's a lot of ideas out there, but I don't know if it's ever going to change.
No, you're right, though. I mean, that idea, when you hear coaches describe the problem, it's hard not to sort of be like, well, if you don't want them to leave, I suppose you can make them contract employees, but that's, will we ever cross that bridge? I imagine we probably will someday. I don't know when.
Max, thank you. Great stuff. You and Bruce Feldman, theathletic.com. Again, the story is in theathletic.com and the headlines at the very top. Max kind of gave me a little bit of an idea that was coming out this morning. That's why we moved him back to today. Tampering confidential in college football. It's inevitable and impossible to stop. All right, when we come back at 3:45, a couple of different notes, including a huge note in the National Football League. Thank goodness. Also, Texas Tech picked up a nice transfer in men's basketball. There have been some Red Raiders who have been a little bit, I guess, fan-based. Like, hey, what's going on? We haven't seen a lot of movement since Grant McCaslin became the head coach, although he has kept some players from transferring. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick, GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great customer service, repair, whatever you're looking for over at Richard Carr, they can hook you up. I've had to go over there a couple of times, didn't buy my car there originally, but I got in a couple of wrecks, and they were the people that I counted on to make sure that my vehicle was running properly and running correctly, and I forget sometimes that I had to even get any work done because it's like it was brand new, like nothing ever happened. And trust me, it definitely looked like something happened when it first occurred, but they did great work, and that will be the place that I go back to because I know that I can count on them, and you can count on them as well. Right now, they've got the most advanced and luxurious pickup in its class with the advanced and astonishing 1500 Sierra Crew Cab. You can save $3,500 right now on Sierra Crew Cabs at Richard Carr. Plus, well-qualified buyers can get 0% financing, 0.9% financing, and no payments for 90 days on most new 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s in stock. Ranked number 1 overall brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers, Buick offers a luxury SUV without the luxury price. Experience the quiet escape and premium drive of a Buick on a test drive today at Richard Carr. And right now you can save $3,000 on the 2023 Buick Enclaves. Plus, well-qualified buyers get 2.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. They've also got a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks, many of those under $20,000. Thoroughly inspected, affordable, ready to finance for almost any credit rating. If that's not enough for you, you're not looking to buy new or buy pre-owned, their award-winning customer service department is standing by to keep you on the road. You can go to the website, richardcar.com, to see the service specials and set an appointment for quick and reliable service. So check out the business that's been in business for 24 years in Central Texas. Built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Wrapping up this 4 o'clock hour, Grayson Grundhafer joins us, Sikkim365.com and 365 Sports recruiting analyst and also Bearcats co-host with Craig. I saw the feature, A.J. Stewart, his first chance to recruit running backs for Baylor, which is probably as deep a position as they have. Grayson, what have you heard about his talent on the road?
I think everything I've heard is very positive. And if you kind of go through the article that I kind of wrote out this morning, it's just an interesting philosophy that he has. And when you look at the offers that have gone out, obviously these guys fit the wide zone scheme exceptionally well, but they're also bigger backs. And I think that that's something really interesting. I know Bryson Washington was a guy they took in last year's class, but he was a guy that they offered kind of late. But if you look through their other offers, there weren't as many guys who are, surefire 210-plus pound running backs. Whereas if you look at the offers they've put out since A.J. Stewart got there, I mean, these are big running backs. I mean, Braylon Russell, the running back out of Arkansas, who Baylor made his top 5, I mean, he's right around 235 pounds. So a very different type of prospect, a different type of athlete. And I think it's very interesting to watch. And then also, he's got more responsibility than just recruiting his position. So he's been a big part of the push they've made, I think, to recruit some of these guys as we get closer to the summer. He's a guy to definitely keep an eye on as far as being one of the better recruiters on the staff and a guy who could help them have a really nice June once official visits get here.
Grayson, Johnny Carter, you say it's down to Baylor and Indiana, you think?
It's kind of interesting. So he took his visit to Indiana last week and then took his visit to Baylor over the weekend. And I talked to him after his trip, and it seemed like he was getting ready to make a decision. But then BYU, Houston, and Penn State all offered right after the Baylor trip. So he decided to take a visit to BYU. He is there right now, so he's in Provo. He did say that this would be his last visit, so I guess you have to include them in the mix as well. But again, I think Baylor's in a good spot. They've made him a priority from day one. Matthew Palage, Kevin Curtis, guys that are trying to get this guy on campus that he can come in and play cornerback for Baylor this year. That's what the offer is for. He's got 1 year of eligibility, so it'd literally just be the 1 year to play at the Power 5 level and an opportunity to showcase his skill set for the NFL draft. So, yeah, it's a big one to watch. Baylor really needs to land him. I think they do need that additional help and depth in the secondary. And specifically at cornerback, this shift to playing more press coverage is going to mean that they're going to have to rotate these cornerbacks a lot more than I think they did last year. When they were able to play more zone defense, it's not as taxing on the body. But if you're going to play press coverage, you're going to need some depth there to kind of withstand as guys get tired and things like that going through the grinds of the season.
Grayson, I guess an important question every week until they land a quarterback will be, where do they sit on quarterback recruiting? And we know that's an even touchier subject just given the events of last year and really kind of just the history of the depth at quarterback, I guess, these last few years with injuries running rampant. So where are they in terms of 2024 after making a safe landing in 2023 when it didn't look like they were able to? They're pretty healthy now, but you always got to be looking forward. So where are they looking right now?
Well, there's still no scholarship offer that has come out, so I guess we're still kind of in a waiting game at the moment. But there are guys who have taken visits to Baylor. There are guys who Jeff Grimes and Sean Bell are evaluating, trying to figure out who is going to be the next offer. And they're kind of in a situation where whoever they do decide to offer, it's very likely that that guy becomes the quarterback in the 2024 class, just because the guys on their radar don't have a bunch of Power 5 offers or anything like that at the moment. The one that's gained a lot of traction, I think, over the last week or week and a half, I would say, is Oaks Christian quarterback Nate Bennett. He's out of California. His parents went to Baylor. He came on a visit about a month ago. to come to Baylor, get on campus, get to see the coaching staff. Sean Bell went out there and watched him throw. Bell's been to a lot of places watching different quarterbacks throw the football, but Bennett, for some reason, over the last, I'd say, week and a half, it seems like there's more momentum there for him to potentially get that offer. And I do think if he did get offered, it would be very appealing for him to potentially just go ahead and shut things down and commit, just because Baylor is truly a dream school for him. Again, if he's able to get that offer, but there are some other guys out there that they're still valuable.
Sean Bell is a name, of course, from his past as a player at Baylor, brought in by Matt Rule. He changed his position, offensive line to tight ends or whatever, and eventually now the quarterback's coach. How much does he really need to hit quickly in any particular way, since that's his quarterback room with a commitment? And not just a commitment, but somebody who actually signs.
I think this is probably going to be a controversial take, but I don't think there's this enormous amount of pressure for him to land a really good quarterback in this class, because I know they missed out on Austin Novosad, and that was a situation that really was more bad luck. I would also say Zach Pyron in the 2022 class, he was also bad luck as well for the staff, just kind of his family situation there. So, I mean, 2 straight years of getting unlucky. So you would like to say, hey, well, you have to land one in 2024. But on the flip side, he did win a recruiting battle against TCU this offseason for Sora Robertson. So he was able to replenish some depth there. They also got RJ Martinez from Northern Arizona, who's played a lot of games, and he's walking on right now at Baylor. So they got quality quarterbacks in that room. I do think that they would like to land a 2024 quarterback. They would obviously, of course, like to do that. But I think right now it's more important making sure that the room is really cohesive and really talented, more so than just bringing in a quarterback to bring in a quarterback. They're going to bring in one in the 2024 class. It's got to be a guy that they really believe in and a guy who they think can eventually become a starting quarterback at Baylor, or else you might as well just keep recruiting the transfer portal, because that's what a lot of coaching staffs around the country are doing. So in general, I think it's more about the health of the quarterback room. I think that's the bigger thing for Sean Bell right now. And right now, I would say that the health of the room is just fine. So now it's just kind of building on that and making sure that it stays healthy.
Yeah, I guess with not getting one year because you were chasing one for almost 2 years, and then not getting that one leaves a little bit of a gap. But if Sawyer Robertson steps up and others around him, that would be helpful, along with the play of Blake Shapen. Grayson, thank you as always. Friday afternoons at 3:45. Grayson Grunhaver, analyst, recruiting coordinator for our site, and also for 365 Sports, and then Bearcast co-host with Craig, that's released every Tuesday afternoon. When we come back, one of the themes today of the 4 incoming schools, based on those who are there, have been there, cover each school. What are the pros and cons for Cincinnati, Houston, Brigham Young, and UCF? We'll start with Hans Olson, Brigham Young color analyst. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace can help you find and get 2 things done. 1, evidence of whatever is hurting you so much that you're in pain, you can't sleep, you can't function, you can't work, you can't do anything because, man, there's just something aggravating your body, whether it's a ligament or a muscle or something else. Ideal MRI has a state-of-the-art technology MRI machine. Their staff is absolutely fantastic. I told you about my experience about a month ago with Marcus, as I had an MRI on my abdomen to check, again, it was on my prostate, just to make sure things are going okay, because there's been a history in the family. Also, my back, my lower back, my shoulder, that's what they do, and $497 or less every single time, which is more than half of what the average of $1,100 is around the country. Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff are elite at what they do. So is the machine you get in, and it's amazing how much they can help you out with the cost and also filing insurance too. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace, helping you find out what hurts so much and also helping you alleviate any issue with your budget.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Have Richard Carr in Waco, Texas.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Yesterday we had a little bit of a conversation among the 4 teams who are leaving conferences, Texas, OU, USC, UCLA, and which of those 4 were more prepared or ready for the next step with a year left. And also we have 4 incoming welcome to the Big 12, which we've been doing really for over a couple of years with Brigham Young, Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF. Hans Olson, Brigham Young color analyst, joins us. Craig and Paul, and I'm David on 365 Sports. Hans, thanks for your time. Brigham Young basically has been playing in a conference in certain ways, but they also have always had a very nice schedule too. What are the pros with them, in your opinion, as they enter the Big 12 this season?
Well, the pros that they bring to the conference?
Do they bring to the conference and how prepared they are to be ready immediately to start to play week in and week out?
Well, I think that they're going to bring a giant audience. I think that that's going to be recognizable pretty quick. And I don't know if you guys saw that TCU is already trying to put in measures with their Keep It Purple package to keep the BYU fans out. I played at BYU back in 1996 and finished my career with them in 2000. And we played in the Cotton Bowl against Kansas State, and Texas just packed in with BYU fans. I mean, we sold out the joint. And we know that wherever BYU goes, they are going to bring fan base. They're going to bring interest and interaction. They're going to bring a lot of discussion and eyeballs. I don't know if you guys just saw some of the breakdowns that are starting to get released on what BYU's value was as they brought them into the Big 12, but they were kind of putting about a $2.5 million price tag on them, saying it's what got them from maybe 28.5, maybe 29 million up to that 31.5. So they bring eyeballs and interest and people and fun, and they bring, I think, a high level of competitiveness. And I'm telling you, it's going to be really interesting to see where they fit in the world of competitiveness in that first year with the Big 12.
When they came here to Waco, it was just overwhelming how many people showed up. I mean, just down right in front of the street where our studio is, it was just blue shirts everywhere that you could see. And don't feel bad, TCU is doing that with everybody. They did it with Texas Tech as well. Does their Pac-12 run of playing a lot of Pac-12 schools a couple years ago, they essentially could have won the Pac-12, make them better suited to make this move than maybe anybody else?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I think they went 5-0 against the Pac-12 in that season, including their first win over the University of Utah in like an 11-year period. So it was a really big year for them just a couple of years ago. And I think that they have definitely been battle tested over the years. They've taken on all kinds of different opponents, and they've been in every stadium, in every situation you could imagine, which is difficult because, as you guys know, through conference play, you get to know your conference opponents pretty well. By the time I was done at BYU, I understood what Air Force was trying to do with that triple option. I understood what Wyoming was trying to do with their cross blocks. And you just don't get that feel when you're an independent. You're all over the board. So they're going to have to get used to coaches knowing who they are and what their system is and what they're all about. That's going to take some getting used to. But to your point, they've played an eclectic group, and they've seen and they've done a lot, and they've been in a lot of stadiums. They've had to give up a lot of road time or neutral game sites. And I think that they are ready. I think on the competitive end, they are ready. This is going to be a little bit more of a consistent, stiff challenge for them because late November, you guys, was, some of the late October and into November through independence, through that 10 years or 11-year run through independence, it got really boring. And I don't want to upset the BYU fans, but those late November, even early November games, they weren't even worth going to. They weren't worth covering. It was terrible opponents, and they were just trying to fill a schedule. So I'll be interested how they do with their depth and pushing into late November for conference championship on the line or, some type of important game to keep your footing there.
Outside of making the move to the Big 12, which is a constant theme, of course, and is going to be widely talked about, what would you say was just kind of the team theme throughout the offseason and spring ball as far as where the focuses are, the changes being made, and just the kind of team mentality as they enter this summer break?
Well, it's solely placed on Keaton Slovis, the transfer quarterback out of Pitt. Played at USC, transferred to Pitt. His career has just slowly trickled downwards, but BYU, Aaron Roderick is a true believer that he can kind of resurrect that game of Keaton Slovis. And so there's a lot of talk about him. He is loved here, and he has really embraced BYU, and he's taken a leadership role, and he's been a front man. Every storyline here in Utah that has anything to do with BYU, typically Keaton's name is strongly in the middle of it. Outside of Keaton Slovis is a big transfer. They've been trying to find other transfers. Guys, they are going through a full defensive staff reconstruction. So the defensive coordinator and pretty much every assistant except for one was let go. Gennaro Guilford was retained at corners, but they brought in the Weber State head coach who had been dominating Big Sky play to be their defensive coordinator. And Jay Hill brought in a collection of former BYU players that have been coaching all over the country. And those coaches have brought players with them. So we've got 2 Weber State guys that Jay Hill has brought to BYU. They've got 2 Boise State guys that Kelly Popinga brought with him as a linebackers coach and now working with edges, and Justin Enna coming out of San Diego State. So they're pulling guys that are bringing talent, and that defensive side of the ball has to reconstruct to be able to keep up with some of the offensive powers in the Big 12. And they know it, and they have made every adjustment possible to be ready for it.
Hans, we will discuss Brigham Young quite a bit and have really for a couple of years, especially when we knew they were about to play Baylor before all of the changes where they were, I guess, invited and accepted to come into the Big 12. But one thing I did learn about Brigham Young fans is they do get a little sensitive, and I get why when people bring up mission trips and the age of their players. Has any of what might have been an advantage there been completely nullified because players are now going 5 and 6 years into college experience because of COVID year, et cetera?
Yeah, I think that thing has always been overstated. And in my experience, and not only playing at BYU, but covering them on air as an on-air personality in the state of Utah now for 16 years, I have watched more return missionaries come back out of shape, unmotivated, and ready to quit than coming back more mature and ready to take on a leadership position. It is the most over-talked about thing, and you guys will see it throughout the years. You know, you get 8, maybe 10 years in, you'll start to see it more and more where BYU had this big signing class, but where's this guy? Where's this guy? And then 2 years later, they come back, and then you don't hear from them again. That happens a lot. So they lose a lot of those guys. The ones that do mature and stay strong, yeah, I think that there's probably some benefit there. But to your point, with what everybody's going through now with the extended year and finding a way to get injury, red shirt, and all those types of things that are available, it's no advantage. It never has been, in my opinion.
Isn't it one of those things that it's maybe more of a reliable lottery that sometimes you're going to hit it, but most of the times it's going to just be like everybody else's attrition, right?
Everybody else is going to go through that attrition for sure. But, you know, the church missions are pretty difficult. They're pretty difficult because you focus yourself so much around Jesus Christ, and all of your attention is put into proselyting and sharing the gospel and the message with people. And that focus sometimes takes you right away from all the things of the world, the things that brought you interest in the game of football. And you come back and your priorities are different. Instead of thumping heads and destroying people and wanting to rip guts out, you're thinking about, well, how can I better serve my mankind and my neighbor? And it's a different perspective. Some guys still come back hungry, though. Don't get me wrong. But, yeah, everybody goes through it. But these missions are really tough for these kids.
You know, one more thing. I know you got to go because you told me you had like 10 minutes, but you're now getting into the booth with Greg as the color analyst. You've been a part of radio. You just got off your own show in the afternoon. Your your uncle, Merlin, the Hall of Fame great, was in broadcasting. It kind of, not only football, but I guess broadcasting runs in your blood.
It does. It does. And I'll tell you what, guys, if you ever have a Hall of Fame uncle that broadcasts 4 or 5 Super Bowls and was considered one of the best NFL broadcasters of all time, maybe go into a different occupation because following Merlin's footsteps has been impossible. I'm always Merlin's nephew, and it's always, you're not as good at him at anything. And that's how it was. I played for 3 years in the NFL. I played for 4 years in the AFL, and every coach I came across, hey, I know your uncle's Merlin, but you're not. Yeah. I know, I'm not him. I know nobody's Merlin. He's the greatest to ever play the position. But yeah, being a little kid watching him do those things, and I'm in rural Idaho. I'm in a small town called Weiser, Idaho, and I'm watching my uncle on the big stage. Man, that's all I wanted to do, and I chased that dream, and I've caught a little bit of it, a little bit.
Well, you've done a great job, and good opportunities coming up for you. Hans, thanks for your time. Good luck traveling. And we appreciate you. We hope to see you soon. We'll see you down the road, no question. Even though Brigham Young and Baylor don't play this year, it will be soon enough. Thank you.
Anytime you need me, I'm here for you guys.
That sounds great. No, we will. You should never have said that. We will. We will, as we tell a lot of our guests, block our number. A retired stockbroker, great man, Hans. Keep it up, sir. He had a big shadow. If he didn't have a son, then you were his. And so, retired stockbroker, thanks for the hands. And we appreciate his time. We're going to go straight to Chad Brendel from Cincinnati. Now, we'll break here. I think we'll break here. We'll break here because we got a lot of guests back to back. Cincinnati's another school. And then we get into what is Houston doing. And then later at 5:30, Mark Daniels, voice of UCF, and their thoughts. And we've heard from a lot of these guest analysts, broadcasters, whoever, but just wanted to kind of have that theme for the day. Anything he mentioned, Craig, Hands, that we'll get into with that also a little bit later on after our segments coming up. This is 365 Sports. I was on the phone yesterday evening. I was on the phone with the owner of Texas Beef House in Aaron Duvall. And I'm going to talk to him a little bit today, record a couple of things with him today. Memorial Day is right around the weekend. And so we're going to put together some information for you if you want to order what they have, which, of course, is Wagyu product, hamburger meat, sausage, steak, hamburger beef, also steak. They have summer sausage, which is delicious. The Wagyu steaks are phenomenal. Wagyu brisket, you name it, they have it. And there are what they call bundles, kind of like you hear us talk a lot about now in cable, whatever, but there are bundles. And Memorial Day is right around the corner. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com. You can contact them. There's numbers on the site as well, and they will then send you what you want. They box it up. They send it to you. Get it. It's still frozen, and you can do with it whatever you want. I know that Kim Coulter ordered from them quickly. Paxton recently asked me about it. He ordered from them. Others that I know have ordered from them. TexasBeefHouse.com. It's from their farm and pasture to you. Customers that don't have to go out of their way to buy the best beef, you will have them send it straight to you. Wagyu beef. Texas Beef House provides quality, farm-raised Wagyu beef. The difference between their beef and the store-bought beef is simple. What they have is store-bought beef comes from overcrowded stockyards. Theirs is farm-raised by them in East Texas, and then, of course, they do the rest of the work to get the Wagyu beef and product to you. It's TexasBeefHouse.com. Don't think about it too late. Memorial Day is just around the corner.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is 365 Sports. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Well, Catalina tracking down Chad Brendel from the Bearcat Journal on Cincinnati. We appreciate the time of Hans Olson, Max Olson, not related, S-E-N, Hans Olson, Max S-O-N, Grayson Grunhafer. Also, in a little bit, Joseph Duarte, who covers Houston. Sam Kahn of theathletic.com, Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics. He was doing a baseball game this afternoon. He'll join us today a little bit at around 5:30. Roger Dodger was asking me about a couple of running backs out of the state of Texas. Nate Palmer, who's at Decatur High School. Did I know much about him? And I happen to. He was at College Station. The head coach there, Steve Huff. It's a new school about 10 years ago. They won a state championship pretty quickly. And then Steve Huff, after leading College Station to about a decade of fantastic, took the job at Decatur, closer to his parents. Nate Palmer eventually went to Decatur. Last year, I think they lost in the 3rd or 4th round to China Spring. He's a hell of a talent. He and Taylor Tatum are 2 names that USC looking at running back, and those 2 guys, of course, are being looked at by a lot of different people. So, Roger, I happen to know a little bit about him. And things about Longview running backs. Tougher than nails. Tough as they can be. Not all of them end up being great. High school to college transition, but they are tough players. And so there's a little bit of note for Roger, who is a huge USC fan. Let's see here. Arizona Wildcat fan here in Pack Purgatory, waiting for St. Peter to let us into the pearly gates of the Big 12 heaven.
Well, that's a viewpoint, and I'm sure there's lots of folks that would love to go open that gate for you, but right now we wait, right? That's what we all continue to do is we wait. And I saw where, I think Wilner has a new column. I haven't, and I don't always get a chance to read those, but it doesn't seem like there's much of an update coming this week. Here we are. It's Friday. It's 5 o'clock on the East Coast already, and you would think that if there was something to announce this week, that would have been done so. So we turn the page once again, and we all remain basically in the same place. And unfortunately for you right now, that is purgatory, but I would imagine that that'll end soon enough, hopefully.
I still think we're months away from.
It could be.
This is this is something that happens
months away from what?
From any kind of announcement, like TV deal or no TV deal and chaos announcement. It's one of those things that's going to happen in June.
What's your definition of months?
Two
or three? Okay.
I mean, June or July. This is a thing that happens when everybody starts to relax about it. Although the last 2 summers have everybody completely on the defensive when it comes to this and just waiting for news, whether there is news or not, which is what leads to, ridiculously wild speculation and all that.
As though things are happening every single day, every hour on the hour.
And everything's new.
Everything's brand new. It's, some new. Yeah, like that stuff gets ridiculous, and that makes the waiting a lot harder. I do think all arrows kind of point to them, kicking the can. But to this summer, if something were to not happen this summer, I think you've got to, I don't care when that deal is coming up normally or whatever, but I mean, just based off Kirk Schultz here recently, I mean, if there's not something by the start of football season, then that, I don't care who you are, there's no way you're spinning that. Absolutely no way you could spin that in my mind, but we'll see.
All right, so the Washington Commanders, we're not able to get Chad. I know he had a busy schedule. We'll see if we can get him on. Joseph Duarte joins us. We'll just go a couple of minutes here, then break and get Joseph. This is the Washington Commanders. Daniel Snyder has announced that he reached an agreement selling the group led by Josh Harris. Snyder era is officially Garrett Ross come to Jesus.
Thank God. This has been miserable since he took over. Absolutely miserable.
Been 25 years or so of just hell.
Yes.
Maybe a handful of teas, but it's done. He's done. He's going to get $6+ billion for running a franchise into the ground. Josh Harris, by the way, has already experienced owning. He's part of the Philadelphia Sixers and other groups, professional franchises. So here's the group. Some of these guys I've never heard of. Now, go to the bottom list. And a lot of people reacted, oh, dear God, there's a Snyder involved. It's not any relationship, by the way. But Josh Harris, Mitchell Rales, David Blitzer, Magic Johnson. We never heard of that one.
Never heard of him.
David Blitzer, is that Wolf's brother? Johnson, Mark Ein, Lee Ansley, Eric Holloman. I never heard of most of these names.
I don't think most of us know any of these people outside of Magic Johnson. Maybe a few others here.
Well, I'm still bringing up there. I don't know. That's what I just said. I don't know who they are. But they all have money.
David Blitzer is in the group with him on the Sixers and the other whatever else he owns. Josh Harris owns a lot of things. When you have $6 billion and you can get these guys together to do that, you own a lot of things. It's great news for the NFL, although there was reports earlier that this was being slowed up because Dan Snyder does not want that full report to come out from Mary Jo White, the former head of the SEC, who is investing, not the conference with the Securities and Exchange Commission that is investigating it. I don't think that at this point, if you're going to make $6 billion and be able to go and hide, you already look bad. Dan Snyder, everybody kind of knows that you're going to look bad. It's going to make the NFL, that report is going to make the NFL look really bad for carrying all this water for Dan Snyder for all those years. And not the...
Doesn't matter, though, Paul.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them, but that's what's going to make look bad. That's why he doesn't do it. But it doesn't matter. I do think it's amazing that the horrible treatment of your employees and running a franchise in the ground doesn't matter. But as soon as you F with the money train, then it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
We are sick of your moral compass.
You can even damage the shield, which you're not supposed to do. But you start messing with dollars and cents, then
It's the way this entire world operates, right? I mean, that's basically how it works. No matter what you do, pretty much, outside of I guess maybe a few things here and there, you can do that and walk away more of a billionaire than when you were before. That's the frustrating part of this story for people, I think, looking at it, is that if they know if they were, in those shoes, having committed some of those same crimes, which granted, you can only commit some of these crimes by having all of the money that he had, but it would be a different story for them than walking away an even bigger billionaire than you were before. But that's the part of the deal that's, a tough pill to swallow. But on the surface and focusing on the positive, I'm just glad that he's out of there. I didn't enjoy being a fan as much, especially in recent years with him at the helm. It was a hard team for me to be proud to root for, honestly. And I know that everybody can point at somebody in some organization and say, well, blah, 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 what about? I don't care about the whatabouts. I'm so tired of whataboutism with everything. I don't care. For me personally, it was not as fun being a Washington fan with Daniel Snyder as the owner. And so I'm glad that he's out, and I hope that better days are ahead. I think that they will be, and I have faith that they will have better days ahead. So let's see, and good luck to the new group.
All right, so there's that note on the Washington Commanders officially now have come to an agreement, Daniel Snyder, to sell to the Josh Harris ownership group. Also, earlier today in the chat room, Kim Coulter mentioned that Texas Tech did receive a commitment, and they did. Big, tall drink of water, averaging nearly, 9.7 rebounds and also a block shot or two a game as he comes in from Arizona State. Warren Washington. What are you shaking your head for? Oh, I thought you were shaking. I thought I said the wrong name or something. Comes in from Arizona State. This is much needed, I think, in a lot of different ways. Grant McCasland, the new head coach, he's been able to keep a couple who might have had wandering eyes. Not everybody, but I've received notes from Katie Rader and a couple of others who are a little bit concerned about the lack of the roster being filled up. They're not the only school, but they do get Washington coming in from Arizona State.
There's still a lot of time in the basketball transfer portal, or at least the draft and all that.
I think the basketball portal now is closed.
But as far as their decisions on the draft and all that, there's still a lot of time on that to be had. So
there are probably 2,000 players in the portal. Who knows? I think basketball, there's much more than even football, which is hard to but there's 363 basketball teams rather than 115 to 30 Division I football teams. When we come back, Joseph Duarte, Houston Cougars. We've had Dana Holgerson on this show. We've had Joseph before. His thoughts on the pros and cons of what is Houston ready for now? What do they still need to work on as they enter the Big 12 here in just a matter of a couple of weeks or maybe a month and a half? This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco, a hidden gem. They're the best place to go find local Texas craft bourbons. Look, I have a bachelor weekend here. Amanda's going back to Nashville to pick up her dress, so I might find my way into Riverbend Liquor and Wine and have a little bourbon. I think I might get something new, something I haven't had before, and they always have. I've never gone in there and just seen the same old, same old. That is saying something, because sometimes you can walk into a place and it's the same stuff, it's the same stuff, it's the same stuff. They are always adding new and exciting brands to their roster of products at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. They're also, you can find out on Instagram when they have exciting things going on, like their new location. They're opening up pretty close to here, just downtown in Waco. And they've got just great variety of everything that you want there, especially craft beer and local Texas bourbons. Available on DoorDash, great customer service, and a speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street. Find out more on Instagram or Behind the Bank.
It's Jeep season at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals on Jeeps are hot. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $5,500 in total values, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with total values up to $5,000. Or if that's not enough, get a 2023 Jeep Compass with 5.9% for 72 months plus $2,000 in total values. Plus $500 bonus cash to first responders. Find the Jeep that's right for you at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
The future's bright, the time is now.
college is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle, joins us, 365 Sports with Paul and Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Joseph, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. We're kind of taking a tour. We have talked to you many times back when there were thoughts that Houston could join, when that, of course, became reality and whatever else, and here we're on the verge. In your opinion, what is it about Houston at this particular time that makes them most prepared for what they're about to be a part of in the Big 12, and what are a couple of things in which they have to be careful about?
Well, if you waited close to 30 years for something, I would hope that you're pretty prepared, or at least have set things up where you can go in and, it's been a long time. I mean, let's just get that out of the way. They've waited, and a lot of people didn't think that it would come, and if it did, it would take several more years. They thought about it in 2016 when the Big 12, had its process that they didn't end up doing anything. But to answer your question, they just from the standpoint of they've sort of operated like a Power 5 for the better part of the last decade without the conference affiliation. The coaching salaries, they've tried to gone out and got some attractive coaches. They've invested in the facilities. But with that said, what they really need to sort of up the ante is the same facilities. Dana Holgorsen has gone on record saying that he's been in the Big 12 at West Virginia. He's been around at Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, and they're going to be near the bottom in that same facilities race. So, I mean, they're trying to raise money for about $140 million football operations building that should break ground at the end of this year. So for the $500 million or so that they pumped into the program that have gone directly to those facilities, that just shows you that helped them get into the game. Now they've sort of got to ratchet up another level to sort of keep up with the ever-changing facilities and how that arms race seems to be a every couple of years deal.
Joseph, the really bummer transfer of them, of Alton McCaskill notwithstanding, how do you feel they are roster-wise set up to start in September?
Well, they've got some holes, and that's number one, because you go into a spring and frankly you come out of it thinking that that's one problem or that you don't have, and for that to happen, the way it was a Friday, they say goodbye, have a good weekend, and on Monday, Alton McCaskill comes in and says, "Hey, I'm transferring." So that was a big blow. They got their quarterback in December from Texas Tech, Donovan Smith. And then with the transfer portal, they lost a lot of offensive linemen. I would say that the two biggest issues that they have right now is, who's going to be sort of the guy in the backfield. And they've got some guys to replace on the offensive line. They lost an all-conference left guard and Cameron Johnson and a couple of other, key backups. They lost their right tackle. So that's where they kind of came out of the spring. No injuries, but the way the transfer portal works these days, those feel like you lose somebody to a season ender because look at the numbers that have entered the portal throughout the spring and are finding new homes.
Joseph, I think I'd ask you about Alton McCaskill like maybe every other time or nearly every time that you were on, because I loved watching him play a couple years ago. I know you just kind of touched on it, but I felt like Dana Holgerson handled that about as well as anybody possibly could have, because I can only imagine that he was, red-faced and not happy behind the scenes, but I thought he really handled that well.
Yeah, and I agree. And talking with Dana the day that it happened, you sort of get a feel for when a coach knows something's happening and when he was completely blindsided. And I really believe it was the latter for Dana Holgerson. They didn't see this coming. There had been some whispers, and I think The Athletic had a story recently about some Group of 5 schools that just feel like they got to hold their breath with the transfer portal because, there's that word nobody wants to say, the poaching and the maybe the back channeling that goes on in college football, where there's now third parties that get involved, maybe plant a seed with the kid and say, hey, look, NIL are those 3 letters now that can either make you or break you. And in this case, Houston's done well in the NIL space, but they're not where some schools are that are frankly for position groups, whether you're offensive lineman or team-wide deals where you're getting X amount of money. They just couldn't match that if that ended up being the 100% the case. But yeah, Alton McCaskill is a special talent. He was coming off the injury. All indications were that he was back from the ACL, and that was a guy going into the Big 12. You can't say he left because you're not in a good conference and he's not going to get exposure, and the draft, the scouts aren't going to be looking at him. He had all of that. So what did it come down to? And unfortunately, in Alton McCaskill's case, he's not taking any questions and he's not making those answers available. So you've got to assume that NIL played a role in his recruitment elsewhere. And we don't even know yet where he's going, but it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up in Colorado. That was the first school that was linked to him when he entered the portal. So we'll see how this plays out, but it was certainly a huge surprise for everyone here in Houston when he decided to leave.
Joseph, you brought up the facilities. Dana Holgerson has brought that up. Joe, we had Chris Presman on, the AD. He's brought that up. Well, everyone knows, and they hear the name Tillman Fertitta, who has a massive amount of money, and every school has one, and some schools have like 9 of him. Where else and what else, or who are the other big name donors that Houston can lean on or does lean on?
Oh, those Tillmans don't grow on trees, and I'm sure right now Tillman is somewhere praying for Victor, as he put it, Wimbayama in the NBA lottery. So there's a lot of other things that occupy his time, but no, in seriousness, I mean, he's their guy. You think of the other schools, whether it's Baylor and Drayton, or Texas has. They've had Red McCombs and some other guys that have stepped up. Houston's got Tillman, and really, I guess you look at it, there's a huge gap between your 1 and your number 2 donor. And, it's interesting because a lot of their stuff comes in anonymously, so they don't have this list that we have that's public that just says, okay, these are mega donors. Back in the day, John Moore, who owned the San Diego Padres, among other things, he was their Tillman before Tillman was on the scene. So, what they've done, and they announced this week, they're cultivating that smaller and your definition of smaller in terms of the economics is probably, different than mine, but they want to go after just bigger numbers in terms of quantity of people that want to give, so that they don't rely. And we're not talking 6-figure gifts for everyone, but they just want to feel like they can add it up to make a dent, because they've had a lot of the people to answer your question, that are donating besides Tillman, they're corporations. They're places here in town that they have established relationships with, whether it's the TDECU, which has the naming rights for the football stadium, or someone like a Memorial Hermann who is in healthcare. So they sort of do it that way. But in my 12 years covering this team, they have a guy or two here and there that'll give $1 million every once in a while, but there's not a move the needle guy quite like Tillman, and a lot of schools don't have that. It's just the way money goes these days. You just don't have somebody that can just carry an athletic program. You got to have multiple guys like that.
Is Donovan Smith, without question, the starting at quarterback when the season begins in September?
I would have to say absolutely. Just the fact that it was him and Lucas Coley in the spring, and Coley's a transfer from Arkansas, played a few snaps last year, but he doesn't have that experience, and that's why Houston had to go out and get a veteran quarterback, and they get one that they're familiar with. Donovan Smith was the guy who led that big comeback for Texas Tech in the double overtime win against Houston in week 2 last year. And he's got about 31 games under his belt. They feel like he fits into the offense, what they want to do. So yeah, he's the guy. I don't think it's a situation where between now and August, they bring in another quarterback that will compete for the job. I think Dana wants to add one more just as a security blanket, because they have those two. Then they're bringing in an incoming freshman, but they don't have anyone else after that. So if something happens, you're one injury away from a bunch of quarterbacks right now that have never played a meaningful snap in college football, or at least one in a major conference.
Joseph, how do they go about trying to replace the numbers that Tank Dell put up these last couple of years, especially last year? There's a ridiculous number of touchdowns and over 100 receptions. And on top of that, just how cool is that to see his moment there during the draft, staying close to his new home here in Houston?
Well, first of all, the Texas Medical Center is about 4 miles from the campus. They should have gone into cloning about 3 years ago and invested some money there to see if they could find a way to duplicate this guy. I mean, it's been the Tank Dell show for the last 2+ years, and you don't replace a guy like that. I mean, this guy, for all of the stories about how he didn't have many offers out of high school and had to go the JUCO route for a year. I mean, it was a phenomenal story. And I went back and crunched the numbers, and he had close to like 300 targets the last 2 years, and no one came even a third of that from what he got. So that just shows you the load that he carried, and it's truly going to be one of those by committee approaches. They have Matthew Golden, who they feel is their next star. They went out of the transfer portal and got a couple of guys. And then returning-wise, they have Joseph Manjack and Sam Brown. But, I mean, none of those guys, came anywhere close to putting up Tank Dell numbers. So that's going to be something that is going to have to evolve, because not only are you going to have a different running back, you lose your quarterback, and you lose your top receiver. So those are 3 huge pieces that are going to be gone from the last 2 years for Houston. And as far as his moment, the fact that he doesn't have to go very far, I mean, those are always cool stories. And the Texans saw value to take him when they took him in the 3rd round. And I was watching some video of his rookie mini camp today, and I mean, he's just we've seen the route running and the quick moves, and it's going to be fun to see where his career takes off the first couple of years, or even the first couple of games, because I think this is a guy that, much like Marcus Jones, who played on the defensive side, he can go in and make a big impact for a team like the Texans right off the bat.
Joseph, great stuff as always, man. Glad we got a hold of you today. Thanks for being a part of this kind of the preview of these schools, even though we've talked to you many times. Thanks for your insight.
Looking forward to seeing you guys on a regular basis. I always enjoy my time in Waco, and let's get this thing rolling with media days in mid-July. So we'll see you there.
And also appreciated your tweet, putting out our names of people to follow if they want a coverage on Baylor, all the 365 sports staff. Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for them. They definitely have some holes to plug, and there's only so much you can do between now and September. But Tank Dell, just a phenomenal player. He's so much fun to watch and so good. And to be a Florida guy who found his way to Houston, and now Houston's very clearly his home. Even more so now with the past few years he spent, but staying there with the Texans, I think that's a cool story. And man, that's a lot of numbers to have to replace just from him alone. And very intrigued by, in the McCaskill thing, we've talked about that, how bummed I was about that. But the Donovan Smith at quarterback storyline, it will be very interesting. He had some great moments at Tech, but he had just a few too many bad moments that, didn't allow him to really grab hold and be the premier player he could have been without some of those mistakes. And that's part of the deal for anybody, but he's got some talent. There's no doubt. He can win them some games.
Yeah, there are times when you're like, man, this kid can carry a team.
And then he'd throw 3 picks.
And then he would throw, that's one of the comments that we saw in the chat room, too. Chad Brendel, great friend of the show, Bearcat Journal, covers Cincinnati with us on 365 Sports. Chad, great to have you on. Did you catch your puppy?
We got him. She didn't make it too far, but it was one of those open the door to let the other dog out, and she saw the opening, and boom, she was gone.
Every human who's ever owned a dog, a puppy, can relate exactly what, and then it's just like fear for like however long it takes you to try to chase it down. All right, so we've been going through this, and we've had you on a bunch in the last couple of years or so since Texas OU left and how the Big 12 recovered. But just kind of as we're about a month or so out from the official date and the season around the corner, in your opinion, what and how is Cincinnati most prepared for what they're about to be a part of, the Big 12? And what are a couple of things in which maybe not make you or the fan base nervous that might be something they must work on?
I think facilities-wise, they're very, very ready. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the pictures or not, but the renderings came out yesterday for their new $120 million practice facility, and it is gorgeous. And Nippert Stadium has been renovated. Fifth Third Arena has been renovated. Essentially, in the past 10 years, they've spent $300 million on facilities. So I think from that standpoint, they're absolutely going to be there. Football right now is a concern. A little. You had it rolling under Luke Fickell. Luke leaves, and you bring in Scott Satterfield, who is a little bit different personality, a little bit different style of coach. But, I mean, I think the thing that people are not really considering when they talk about Scott Satterfield, he had his big glow up at Appalachian State. And then for whatever reason at Louisville, it was okay, but it just never popped. If he's going to do this a long time, he's got to get it right now. So I think he does have that, advantage to it. He's still in his 40s, so a younger guy, but the instability is going to make UC fans a little bit extra cautious just because it's going to be new. And when you're dealing with something like going, up a level, you'd rather have old, especially when old took you to the college football playoff.
Chad, how much concern, especially immediately on this season, comes from the fact that, look, Ben Bryant's gone. I know that, they kind of went through the ringer and the ups and downs with him, but it's Emory Jones, and the quarterback position is pretty unsettled for year one in the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to obviously have your eyebrows raised quite a bit because you don't know, exactly what you're going to get. And it becomes even harder to tell when you've got a dual threat quarterback because, if you've got a passer, something like spring practice gives you a pretty good indication of what you're dealing with. When you got a guy that runs, it's a lot more difficult because nobody's live in spring practice. So, is he going to go back to where he was at Florida, where he was a little bit more of a dual threat guy? If you look at Emory Jones when he was at Arizona State, they hardly ran him at all. I mean, he almost was a pro style, which for a guy with that kind of athleticism doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But, things weren't exactly stable in the Herm Edwards era at Arizona State. So it's going to be interesting because they lost almost their entire wide receiver room. I mean, they have one returning scholarship wide receiver. So you're completely remaking your wide receiver room. You're pretty good at running back, but you've got 2 tight ends, one drafted, one signed as a free agent in the NFL. So, in terms of what he's going to have as pass catching options, nobody's really 100% sure. I liked what I saw from a couple guys, a couple of the transfer guys that they brought in this spring, but until the bullets start flying, it's a mystery a little bit. So who knows? I'm guessing you're probably going to see Cincinnati run the ball, and Scott Satterfield's a read option, outside zone, primary offensive mind. So I think you're going to see Cincinnati probably run the ball 30, 35 times, at least as they find their footing early.
Chad, for those of us who don't keep up with Cincinnati as closely as you do, what led to that vacancy, so to speak, in the wide receiver room? Was it transfer portal? Was it just attrition with the coaching change? What led to just having that little amount returning?
A little bit of everything. I mean, you had 2 draft picks in Trey Tucker and Tyler Scott, one in the 3rd round, one in the 4th round. So that left you a little thin. And then the year before that, they lost Alec Pierce to the Indianapolis Colts in the 2nd round. So that was your kind of top of the roster wide receiver rotation for 2 years. And then the guys that were supposed to be kind of coming up behind them entered the transfer portal. So you had a situation where you felt like you had pretty good depth in that room, and then, everything kind of exploded pretty quick, and you had to start over. And that's never an easy feeling for any coaching staff to have, especially wide receiver, where you generally have 11, 12 scholarship players, and you arrive on campus and there's one. You don't feel great about yourself in that moment.
Chad, what game are Cincinnati fans looking at the most, as far as the one that excites them the most? They have Oklahoma on their schedule. Is that it?
Oklahoma at Nippert Stadium. I mean, that's always been, when Cincinnati's played the Oklahomas and Ohio States of the world, those games were always at Paul Brown Stadium, where the Bengals play, but Paycor Stadium now, or Pay Joe Stadium now, as we like to call it, here in Cincinnati. Those games always got moved, so they've never really had that, marquee national brand at Nippert Stadium. And so Cincinnati fans are going to be pretty fired up for that one. And it's interesting because, I mean, I guess Oklahoma's supposed to be good, but they weren't good last year.
Right.
And, maybe that's a chance. You talk about really, getting people behind the beginning of the Scott Satterfield era. You beat Oklahoma in Nippert Stadium, people are going to start feeling pretty good about where things are headed.
Chad Brendel, Bearcat Journal, with us on 365 Sports, and we've kind of looked at the game, the position. Is there a play, and I know it's 85 guys on scholarships or whatever, but are there a couple of guys, in your opinion, based on talking with coaches or your own intel of your eyeballs, are there a couple of players that kind of excite you a little bit, that might be flying under the radar, that could end up being playmakers for them?
Yeah, I think the guy that really impressed me the most throughout the spring is a young man, a cornerback that transferred from Florida named Jordan Young. We've had a pretty good run at Cincinnati of watching really good cornerbacks. And while Jordan Young isn't, Ahmad Gardner's an alien. Like, just
sauce.
I love it.
It's hard to say, he doesn't look like him. Nobody looks like him. Mm-hmm. So, but, Pickle had a type, which was a longer, taller, 6'2", 6'3" range that he liked for cornerbacks. Jordan Young's right in that 6'1" range, so it looks a little different. but he was outstanding in spring football. And I know the coaches at Florida were not happy that he entered the transfer portal and he got away from them because they thought he had a chance to be really good in the SEC. So he's one that I think, it has a chance to really carry on that tradition of high quality corner play. Dan Greshik, who was a transfer, one of the, higher rated edge defenders in the country. And he's going to be playing. So what a lot of people don't realize about Scott Satterfield's team at Louisville last year, they led the nation in sacks. And defensive coordinator Brian Brown is very, very aggressive getting after the quarterback. So a guy like Greshik has a chance to come in and really, really excel, playing kind of that stand-up outside linebacker, rush end type position for them. So I think defensively, those are two guys to watch. Offensively, a name I'm really excited about is a running back named Miles Montgomery. I thought he probably should have played more last year, but he's more of an outside speed guy, and that fits what Scott Satterfield does with his outside zone system. So I think Miles Montgomery and then Corey Kiner is the other guy. Those are probably going to be your 1 and 1A at running back. And I think there's a chance for both of them to be really good. Wide receiver, I don't know. There is a tight end to keep an eye on. His name's Shimon Mateer. He's 6'5", 260 pounds, and runs, high 4.4, low 4.5 for a guy that size. And if he can put it together, he was injured last year, dislocated his shoulder early in the season, and I thought he had a chance to kind of make a little bit of a name for himself and get some momentum going towards the end of the year, but unfortunately he missed a lot of time. But I do think that's going to be a name in the passing game, especially if you're not comfortable at wide receiver yet. You have that safety valve at tight end, and you can play him in line. You can play him out in space a little bit. So as far as pass catchers, that's my best bet for kind of a breakout guy as well.
Cincinnati's football history with, even going back for someone my age, Joe Morrison, who played with the Giants, who was a fantastic player, Trent Cole with the Eagles, Brig Owens with Washington, I think it was. But, he was. Yeah. But now that you have the Kelsey brothers in what they've done and now Sauce Gardner, are those the three names that carry some weight? Desmond Ridder carry weight when it comes to Cincinnati, leaning on them to discuss what can happen if you come to Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is nobody, but I mean, arguably, Cincinnati's got the best player at three different positions in the NFL. And, Sauce, you can make an argument he's not quite there yet, but he's certainly up near the top of that list. Mm-hmm. Travis Kelce's unquestionably the best tight end in the country, in the NFL. And Jason Kelce, you could make every argument possible that he's the best center in the NFL. So that's a pretty hot streak for one place, especially a place that, was not in the power structure, was operating outside the system, to still be able to do that. Yeah, you can bank that there's a lot of pictures of those guys around the building. And Sauce still comes around. Sauce is at the spring game. If they're out of season, Sauce just hangs out in Cincinnati. So imagine being a recruit, and especially a cornerback recruit. You come to spring practice one day, and all of a sudden you're just standing next to one of the budding stars in the NFL, talking shop, and that has had a lot of ripple effect on their recruiting targets that say, hey, it can be done here, and I can not only make it to the league, but be a potential star in the league.
Chad, we appreciate you, man, the friendship and what you also have brought to the table when it comes to our show. I know it's been a tough year for you with the loss of your wife, Kelly, who inspired so many people. We love the information we've had from you every time we've had you on the show. Can't wait for the conference to actually officially begin. And thanks for your insight. And when you have the door open and there are dogs and a puppy, you have to pick the puppy up first.
Yeah, the hook wouldn't go on to let the other dog out, so it took me that extra split second, and that's all she needed, boys. She saw an opening, like a running back that sees that crease and takes it 80 yards to the house. She was gone.
We'll get an offer from Satterfield here very, very soon. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it. Great
Appreciate it, guys. Talk soon.
Chad Brendel, Bearcat, 247 Sports Bearcat Journal on the Bearcats. I love his insight.
Yeah, and I mentioned Desmond Ridder. He doesn't really belong with those other three names as far as premier at their position, but he's got a real opportunity in Atlanta.
Well, they're setting up, like, around him, it looks like the offensive line is pretty good. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They already have a couple guys there that are pretty good. So, yeah, if it doesn't work, it's kind of on him, and I think that's why you need to set it up. The Cowboys are doing the same with Dak right now. They're trying to get everything around him. They're not quite there yet, but like everything around. That way, it's on this guy.
Yeah, I know we got to run, but that facility looks really nice.
Yeah.
That indoor looks really nice. I like that they didn't just go plain Jane with it. They did nice artistic style. I don't even know what you would call it, but it's a lot of glass and views, and like one end zone you can see clear into the whatever that's going to be, the parking lot or the other buildings or what have you. But I just like that big open window they have at one end, and yeah, it's a really cool. That's going to be great for them. That's going to be awesome.
Bobby B, among others. The guy's a great interview. He is. Chad Brendel, someone we got to know back when the rumors and speculation, not speculation, but the notes from us that Cincinnati was all but in, and eventually they were absolutely a part of the incoming four to join the Big 12. When we come back, Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. Man, I love what the chat room, a lot of different topics going on. And the text line got in the car. By the way, Paxton sent a picture of his backyard and his pool. It is phenomenal looking. Paxton, well done. I don't even know if I'm allowed to show that, but look at the pole that Paxton, he took the cover off. It's that time as the heat starts to come out. That looks like a beauty. So Paxton, thanks for sending that picture. When we come back, Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. Now that we've discussed, except UCF, we'll have Mark Daniels in 25 minutes. His thoughts about the incoming four and so much more college football. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be, and here's how you do it. Contact him and his staff, he or his staff, at pettycliniclowt.com. Number, email in the top left-hand corner. Tell him that David Smoak sent you. That's fine by me. And what he will do, one out of every 4 men, and maybe it's you, have symptoms of low testosterone. Sex drive is not the same. Sleep habits have changed. You're kind of gaining a little extra body fat, and even though you're active, and then your focus is just not there. A lot of that can be because of your testosterone level dropping, which is part of father time. Dr. Petty and his staff, if in fact you contact them, they will set you up to get your blood drawn and get your blood results. Dr. Petty will look over them, and if your testosterone levels are too low, he can help you put yourself in a program, and he has the program for you to increase your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man you want to be. And it's not just about sex drive. It's about so much more in your life at pettycliniclowt.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to the water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. Great friend of the show, Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. David Smoak, Greg Smoak, and Paul Catalina, 365 Sports. And Sam, thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate you. You have covered the Big 12, but you cover college football in general. But of the 4 schools this year coming in, Brigham Young, Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, who do you think is most prepared for the first year?
It's a great question. I would say probably either BYU or UCF. BYU for a couple of reasons. That one, they've got a really stable coaching situation. Kalani Sitake's been there for a while, and they're probably the team that has played something close to a Power 5 schedule, or closer to a Power 5 schedule than those other schools have, because they're an independent and they've been able to schedule other Power 5 teams. And it always hasn't been that way, and certainly the last year or so has brought some challenges with that. But I think they recruit nationally, so that helps a little bit to a degree too. So I think they're really well positioned. I think UCF is, because just from a talent standpoint, I think their roster seems to be in really good shape. I think Gus Malzahn, his background in the SEC, being successful at an SEC program, think he knows what it looks like, and considering where they are, obviously right in the middle of Florida, that's a great place to be and a great foundation to start with. The UCF fan base seems to be pretty good. They seem to have a good home field advantage. Facilities are in pretty good shape. So those would be the programs that I would look at that I feel like are best positioned coming.
Sam, do you feel like even schools that are like way, I mean, everybody recruits in Florida, but do you think that we'll see an uptick on the players leaving Florida and coming to Big 12 schools because of UCF now, or am I stretching that a little too far?
I don't think it would be massive. I think it'll be on a case-by-case basis. Certainly within the state, it's going to help UCF against some of the other schools that they recruit against. But everybody recruits Florida. And not just everybody in that state, but everybody in the country, or most people on the East Coast. And even there's teams in the Midwest that recruit Florida heavily. So I think you'll see a little bit of a trickle in. And I think where you could see the presence increase in the Big 12 is actually with the schools that are more on that side of the map, where you could see West Virginia, where I know in the Dana Holgerson era, West Virginia recruited Florida quite a decent bit. So I think, because it's an East Coast school, maybe you could see them dip in there. I don't know where Neil Brown sits and what his strategy is in that regard. And then Cincinnati, I think Luke Fickell, when he was there, I think they used that state when they could. So I wonder if you could see those schools dip into it a little bit. And certainly, Daniel Holgerson, I know has had some, times when he's gone out that way as well. So I think you could see on a case by case basis, but I wouldn't expect to see a massive influx of Florida talent into the country.
Sam, you have covered A&M quite a bit. I mean, you covered the whole state, don't get me wrong, but I know you saw Jimbo Fisher's comments about TCU the other day, and I know there's context and there's things that are missing sometimes on Twitter, but how did you take those, and what were your thoughts on what he had to say about the Frogs?
Yeah, I wasn't there that night. I was at a stop in Houston when he came to Houston, so I wasn't at the Fort Worth one when he made the TCU comments, and I think Carter Carls, the reporter who tweeted him out, mentioned that they were kind of made in jest, which Jimbo likes to try to crack his jokes when he can. There's some truth to it. I think in the fact that TCU ran up against a really, really good SEC team, and that's where everything came to a grinding halt. And I don't think anybody would deny that if TCU had the same roster in the same situation and was in the SEC, so they probably wouldn't have gone 12-0. I don't think that's a wild take to put out there.
Right.
At the same time, I do get annoyed when coaches who are not at Alabama, not at Georgia, start to crow about the power of the conference when they really haven't done much to lift the power of the conference. Texas A&M has had a couple good seasons since they've been in the league. They had the 11-2 year, the very first year. They had the 9-1 season in 2020. Jimbo's third year there, he came close to making the playoff that year. But it's not like A&M is this big power. And so I do find it amusing when schools at other SEC schools in the middle of the pack kind of crow about the strength of the conference. And I think there's some truth to that from a talent standpoint, but let's not act like everybody in the SEC would have beaten TCU 65-7. That's just ridiculous.
Sam Cotton with us, theathletic.com on 365 Sports. Of all of what's going on in the college football landscape, transfer portal, the NIL, and I know that Bruce Feldman and Max, we had Max on earlier on the tampering article, which was really cool. The realignment, scheduling. What is more, Dion, what is, in your opinion, like the top 2 or 3 topics in a row?
Right now, I think it's portal and it's NIL still, I think. And Dion is obviously gathering a lot of attention, but I think that once they hit the field, we're going to talk about what's on the field in Colorado, not necessarily what Dion's doing with the roster. A realignment, I think, always is kind of a slow hum there until it starts getting kicked up again. And once that happens, obviously it comes to the forefront. But right now, it seems to be fairly quiet on that front, at least while we all wait to see what the Pac-12 does with the TV deal. But the portal and NIL are what are evergreen at this point. I think are going to remain evergreen moving forward. The tampering part of it, which I think Bruce and Max did a really good job of illustrating what the issues are there and how challenging it is to address them at this point. It's a real deal, and it's hard to deal with. At the same time, I don't know what there is to be done about it if coaches are not going to call each other out for it. So that combination of one-time transfer rule with immediate eligibility and NIL has kind of created a real volatile roster situation for just about everybody in the sport. And it's not going to change. And the thing that I think that kind of goes overlooked when I mention all those things is the calendar. And when I say, I mean the recruiting calendar. And we see these staffs growing to large sizes because you have to have somebody scouting all the other rosters in college football for the portal purposes. You have to have people scouting multiple classes at a time to recruit high school teams. This is really, I think, and you see some coaches who have left and gone to the NFL, or some who are getting out. I've talked to a lot of personnel staffers who are getting out completely. And it's not to cry a river for the coaches, but it is to say that we talk about trying to establish work-life balance, and I don't think there is one right now in college football, especially if it's one thing to say that for the head coaches who make 7 or 8 figures a year, but it's another thing for the staffers who are on the low end of the totem pole, who are doing a lot of this legwork, who are making only, 5 figures a year, and who are making, make no more than the average Joe. So that is one thing that I would hope at some point we can get under control is how much the recruiting has to happen 24/7, 365 at the high school level, at the college level, portal, the whole thing. It is kind of fascinating to see how this is all unraveled in the last years.
Kind of in line with that, what were your thoughts? I know it's been a couple of weeks, but we were just talking Houston a little while ago. What were your thoughts when you saw that Alton McCaskill was hitting the portal?
I was surprised, and not to say that it's a shocker, because you really can't bet on anything at this point, but there was just no indication coming from anybody at Houston heading into that into the spring portal window that Alton McCaskill was going to go anywhere. He seemed to be happy, at least from everybody that I've talked to over there, and they've worked really hard to try to keep him around, because they knew after his first season at Houston, when he had his bang-up true freshman season, that there was going to be some schools that wanted him to come. And so they try to work hard to prevent that from happening. And they almost made it until the end of that portal window. And then obviously it happened. So he'll end up in a Power 5 program, and he'll do really well. And it is a major blow for Houston, because I think they really missed him in a big way on the field last year when he was injured and had that knee injury in the spring. Houston was a good team, not a great team, but I think had he been healthy, they probably win a couple more games. He is just a dynamic back, and he's the caliber of back and caliber of player that they need to succeed in the Big 12. And losing him is a massive, massive blow for him.
Zachary Franklin at UTSA, kind of same thing for them?
Yeah, no doubt. The thing that makes that a little easier to endure is that they still have Frank Harris, they still have J.T. Clark, they still have Joshua Cephas, they still have Oscar Cardenas. They have a lot of other options. Now, Zachary is the most productive receiver they had, and that's not to say Zachary Franklin. There's a million Zachary Franklins out there, because there's not. But they can sustain that a little bit more than I think Houston could, just because I think that the division or the gap between McCaskill and everybody else on that running back depth chart is not. It's a lot bigger than it is between Franklin and those other receivers. And the fact that you still have Frank Harris is huge, because he really is, in my opinion, the heart and soul of that team. But it is a huge loss, and when you're going to the American, as UTSA is, the competition steps up a little bit. They've got some tough challenges. Zachary Franklin can help you if you think you have a chance of beating Tennessee in September. That's not an easy task, and that's not anything that I think anybody's counting on at this point. But it's not something that I would rule Jeff Traylor's team out from doing. They've gone on the road and beaten good teams before. So it would certainly help to have that guy if you're UTSA, and so not having him obviously is a tough loss. And I think Jeff Traylor has endured this not only just with the portal, but also with his own coaching staff, losing, I think, half a dozen coaches in the last couple of years to Power 5 program.
All right, Sam, so the big 14 teams, including the incoming 4, not going to go over every one of those programs. We don't have time, and you don't want to hear them anyway, but how many, just off the top of your head, do you feel like are going to go up from where they were last year? Because we covered Baylor. Yeah, we covered the entire conference. And I don't think anybody on this set, Paul, Craig, me, or anyone else, we have no idea what to expect from about who they will be this season.
Yeah, it's really going to be fascinating, because it was already competitive from top to bottom, and now you're adding 4 more teams, and you've got 2 that are on the way out, and it's just really hard to say. I would say I think Texas is going to take a step up. The way that Sarkisian has built that roster suggests to me that they're going to be pretty good and be better than 8-4. Texas Tech seems to me like a team that's rising up. I think Joey's done a good job so far with recruiting there. They've got a lot of returning production. They've got 2 quarterbacks back. They've got virtually the entire staff intact. I think they look in good shape. I would expect, and I don't know their situation as closely, but you would have to think Oklahoma is going to be better than they were last year. You would think. You would have to think Baylor would be better than they were last year. But those are two teams that I think we're going to be watching very closely to see how that goes for those programs. Iowa State lost 6 games by single digits last year and had the best scoring defense in the conference. You got to tell me they're going to be better than 1-8 in the league that they were last year, and especially with Hunter Dekkers going to year 2. Does J.J. Cole supplant Hunter Dekkers at some point? Or is Hunter Dekkers the guy? You would think TCU's probably come back down to earth. So the one team that I would say that I feel most confident about, though, out of all of these teams, and they really can't raise their level because they already won it, but it's K-State. Even though K-State lost Deuce Vaughn, even though K-State lost Felix Anudike-Uzomah, they have a ton back. They got that entire offensive line back. They got Will Howard back. They've got a handful of starters back on defense. I really do like where that program is going. They've got a lot of stability on that coaching staff. A lot of those guys have been there 2, 3, 4 years. Chris Kleiman is doing a really good job there. And if I were filling out my poll, preseason Big 12 poll right now, I think Texas and Kansas State would be the top 2 teams on it.
I think that's kind of what we've discussed because TCU had everything go right. Not that they can't still be really good. I think that's kind of what we've discussed that on this show. Have a great weekend, Sam. We appreciate you jumping on with us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. So we've been and we've heard from Max Olson and Sam Kahn, the Athletic, Grayson Grunhafer, SicEm365.com. Then also Brigham Young, Cincinnati, Houston, and we'll hear from UCF and Mark Daniels here around the corner. Just around the corner is, of course, the official start of everybody within the Big 12 for at least a year, 14 teams, including Texas and Oklahoma, and then, of course, the next year they're in the SEC. This is 365 Sports. I showed some pictures yesterday of a Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe Summit. It's one that I've driven yesterday, and I've driven throughout the day today. When the show ends, I'm going to take it back by the dealership at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. I show these pictures because yesterday I went to go turn in the car that I bought from them for regular maintenance when it comes to an oil change. And then I had to get my brakes fixed in the back and then a back right tire that's a little bit out of whack that needs to be replaced. This is an amazing car. I've been driving it for about a day and a half. There's the unbelievable seating, the stitching. The passenger side has the ability to have their own touchscreen. Everything about this car is phenomenal. And it's at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Everything seems to be as elite as you want it to be, from the camera to whatever you need when it's on the remote or your dashboard. It's a beautiful, basically like driving a pickup truck. It has the control of a beautiful SUV, and it is available at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Thanks to Ted Teague for letting me drive it around for a couple different days. I wish I didn't have to turn it in, but I will at the end of today's show to get the car that I also love that I bought from them. It's Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 at east of 84 in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
A man of many sports for UCF, the voice of UCF Athletics, Mark Daniels with us on 365 Sports. Mark, thanks for your time. Baseball, take care of business?
We did not today, but there's a game tomorrow, so we're optimistic. Tomorrow we drop the opening game of the series here in Cincinnati and come back tomorrow, part of a 3-game set. So down the stretch of the season, just trying to get a little bit of momentum, but fell short today.
So, of the 4 incoming teams, we've heard from those who either cover or are part of the broadcast at Houston, Cincinnati, and also at Brigham Young, and obviously wanted to get your opinion. In your opinion, why is UCF more prepared perhaps than the others incoming, and what are still maybe a couple of concerns for them?
Well, if we're more prepared than others, I think we're all in unique situations. I think UCF has been building momentum from the success of 2017 and 18, not knowing that an opportunity to move up to a Power 5 was happening. But I think that they established a brand, built that brand, and developed a reputation with the success they had in football in those years, and they've been able to maintain it the last several seasons. So I think that has kind of helped UCF. And you know, with Gus Malzahn coming in the last couple of years, 2 9-win seasons and playing an exciting style of football, I think the other factors that help UCF is the market that we're in. At the top 20 television market, largest school in the country as far as enrollment, and you know, such a bright future that UCF, you know, is in the infancy compared to so many people. Guys, if you think about this, the makeup of the Power 5 now, I think there's only 5 schools that did not start in the 1800s, and we're one of them. We're the youngest of the Power 5 schools that didn't open up until the late 1960s. So there's a lot of things that are developing in the growth of UCF. So I think that the stage is now set for them to go to the next level, and the next level is to get an opportunity to compete against a different set of schools, develop new rivalries, and to grow its brand. And I think each of the new schools coming in is unique in what they have to offer. We've always prided ourselves in building about we're a little bit different, we're younger, we can try some things because we don't have that legacy of the past that kind of have to act a certain way. And I think UCF has taken advantage of that over the years. I'm not quite sure there's anything that they're not prepared for other than understanding the level of competition in all of our sports. We're going to have to raise up. And you don't just do that with one recruiting cycle. You don't just say, well, now we're in this league and now we can contend. Those are things that I think you have to play catch up on. I think on facilities, we're in a good spot now. We've got to continue to grow. We've got a great plan in place over the next X number of years. So those are things that I don't think are challenges. I think those are exciting things that you're working towards that'll take more than just one off season.
Mark, do you think that they have built this up enough to a Power 5-ish roster, not just knowing that they were going to be here, but that they've had the success that they've had, undefeated seasons and all that down the line, that they've been able to get close enough to where they need to be to make us at least a moderate splash in year one?
Yeah, I think the football roster at UCF is in pretty good shape right now. When Gus got here, he inherited a pretty good program. And then I think this before we knew we were going to the Big 12, he felt like he could recruit at a little bit different level because of where he was, the connections that he had. And then at the same time, guys, the portal took on a new level. And Gus was very aggressive in year one. And now going into year three, he's been very aggressive. Now knowing where he's going, he had to zero in on some areas that we had to improve on. And guys, you know this. The challenge is going to be in the depth of the line, the quality of your linemen. How good are your offensive linemen and defensive linemen? If somebody goes down, what kind of depth do you have? I think UCF in some areas can compete right now. I think from a standpoint of wide receivers and running backs and their secondary, I think that they're in a good spot. And while they've got good offensive and defensive linemen, it's the quality and the depth that is a struggle. We're all looking for quality linemen. So I think that's where Gus knows he had to really upgrade himself. He did a great job on the high school level, bringing in some quality defensive linemen. We had to go heavy in the portal when it came to offense and brought in a number of experienced offensive linemen. I think that's going to be the challenge. And the other thing, and I said, I think the last time I was on with you guys, both for players and fans, the understanding of the 9-game schedule, it is a big difference, 8 to 9, and I think the week-to-week grind of not just the quality of competition, but the atmospheres. And I've said this, I've written about this before in my show and on columns. It's no knock against some good programs in the American, but we would go on the road and we would take the field into places. There's 2,000-3,000 fans at the game. That's not the case in the Big 12. We're talking about sold-out crowds and great atmospheres, and you've got to be able to bring that every single week. And I think that's something that UCF's got to prepare for that's been different than where they've been for the last decade.
What would you say would be like the main storyline that was, the focus of spring, coming out of spring? Is it the fact they've got, quarterback back in John Rice Plumlee? Is it the strength of another area? Is it the lack of strength in another area? What was kind of the theme revolving around spring outside of course, hey, we're heading into the Big 12. We've got some things to take care of.
Yeah, I think, two new coordinators. Darren Henshaw came in as the offensive coordinator, former quarterback at UCF, and Darren's been in a number of schools, including Kentucky recently. And Gus Malzahn kind of giving him the keys to the offense or what was going to change with that offense. Darren's a guy that both as a player and as a coach wanted to be a little bit more vertical than perhaps what Gus was comfortable doing with the SEC mentality. As much as Gus enjoys kind of opening things up, he's committed to running the football. Well, UCF's going to commit to run the football. But I think with Darren Henshaw as the OC, you might see a few more let's go vertical down the field and trust our wide receivers that we can beat some guys one-on-one. And as the wide receiver position has grown so much in recent years, for now, 50-50 balls, guys, are almost 70-30. I think you'll see UCF take a few more shots downfield. They tweaked some things with John Rice probably to make him feel more comfortable. But there were some spots that UCF had to fill, like I mentioned about the offensive line where they went heavy portal. We were very thin at linebacker going into the spring, and UCF had to be aggressive, which they were, picking up a couple of linebackers at the end of spring as the portal was closing. So I think those were some spots to see how the offense was going to change, shoring up the linebacker position, getting healthy with some guys that weren't there in the spring in the secondary. Addison Williams was on the staff. He now becomes the defensive coordinator for UCF as their previous DC moved on to go to the SEC. So those are some things that UCF certainly wanted to see what happened. I think they come back in the fall feeling good. I think Gus feels like he's on the plus side of who he lost and who he gained in the portal. I think he feels comfortable where the offense is right now. Then he's got to go out, play some games and find out who you are.
Of the schedule, and you still have Cincinnati and Houston on the schedule, but Oklahoma's on the road, Baylor, West Virginia, Oklahoma State at home, Texas Tech's a road game, as is defending champion K-State. Is the Oklahoma game the one that everybody has everybody's attention, or is there one of the home games?
Isn't that great for us to say? Those are our opponents. It's awesome. Guys, I'll tell you what, no game should be a make or break game, but I'm going to tell you, UCF plays at Boise State, second game of the year. It's a really critical football game. We beat Boise State a couple of years ago in a game that was delayed by rain and took a long time and kind of held them off late. And we're going to go out there, and they got better as the year went along out there. They feel like they have their quarterback, and they're going to be hungry to get UCF. It's a critical game because UCF goes there, then they play Villanova before diving into the conference schedule. If you can win a quality road game and you come home and you're 3-0 going into conference play, you got a really good level of confidence against what you know is going to be a tough schedule. But to answer your question, look, I think UCF fans are excited for every opportunity now against a new group of opponents, what rivalries may develop. To pick at any one particular game, I'm not quite sure. Obviously, Oklahoma, because of Dylan Gabriel, is a game that UCF fans have circled, and a lot of fans plan, I want to go to that football game. It's going to be really interesting. But in a transfer portal world, this is now a lot more common. Certainly going to Kansas State is going to be an interesting football game. We were there years ago when George Lear was the coach and had a chance to win that game. So, there's a lot of interesting games that are on the schedule and excited to get some of those teams coming to our place. But I think that Boise State game is a real telling game early in the season for UCF before we even get to the conference schedule.
Mark, it's around the corner. It's here. It's been official, but it's just around the corner. Look forward to seeing you. Thanks for all the times you've been on with us, because we're going to bother you some more coming down the road.
Anytime, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, with us on 365 Sports. So thanks to Mark Daniels, Joseph Duarte, Chad Brendel, and Hans Olson for kind of giving us their perspective on the 4 incoming schools into the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting times. It's right around the corner. I think we're about to hit this little bit of a kind of a lull, so to speak, with like spring sports ending, and like June's just a weird month where it's like you're only...
Well, you wait for terror. That's what you wait for in June.
Yeah. And then, by mid-July, it'll be ramping right back up with media days. And, last year... Was Mark there last year? I don't remember. Yeah. But I remember UCF having a contingent of guys. But, yeah, for those that weren't there, it was like groupings from all the new schools just coming and checking out the scenes and, the layout and what to expect when they bring the full meal deal this summer. So that'll be cool to see them, officially a part of the deal. And I would imagine that means we'll have a pretty good shot of getting Satterfield or Malzahn or – Sataki or Holgerson, they're on Radio Row and amongst the other coaches that'll be, obviously returning as well. So looking forward to that here. About 2 months? About 2 months from now.
What is it, like July 20-something?
Like mid-July. Yeah. About 2 months from now. So, yeah, that'll be exciting, and that really is kind of like the kickstart to start ramping things back up slowly but surely. But, yeah, I'm excited. I mean, we've talked about it so much at this point, just, the transition and all of that it'll be good to see some actual results and some actual, contest and see how they stack up initially or who's surprising in what ways and what problems are there to solve early on because, I'll repeat it, TCU had to deal with it. West Virginia had to deal with it. I mean, everybody, we're assuming that Texas and Oklahoma, when they go to the SEC, that as prepared as they will be, that they'll have a little bit of a curve. Sometimes it's not like that. Like Missouri joined the SEC. They were in the conference championship game. But then the story took a turn after that, and that was like their best moment was year one. But still, there are teams that can jump up and have success right away. I'll be curious to see if one of them can do that. But they all seem to have some pretty glaring questions as they make this transition.
A&M and Mizzou's best moments were right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy,
Yep.
and they had that fantastic year, and then won in the Cotton Bowl against Oklahoma. It was, this was a perfect decision.
how long ago that was?
Yeah, it
A
was
long
decade
hell
ago.
of a long time
Nebraska's
ago.
just been kind of floating there.
Yeah.
Colorado's been Colorado had some okay moments, a few years back, but nothing crazy.
But is anybody that's left the Big 12 better now than when they left?
They're all better in the pocketbook.
Yeah.
Not
Much
all of
better.
them. Not all of them. Not all of them. But most of them.
Hey, here's the thing about A&M.
Are any of the teams that left
they're
better
not.
now?
The sad thing about A&M, and it's not as sad as, Colorado is, had to hire Deion Sanders to get excitement back into their program. Nebraska has been through, we've talked about it enough. Missouri, no. A&M is exactly the same, but richer.
Yeah.
That's it.
They are who we thought they were. Is that right?
What I'd love to know is if somehow, I don't know who could come up with this, but what would the Big 12, its original state, what would that be worth for a TV deal right now?
With A&M,
Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, Missouri.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, I know that wasn't, the entire reason for why there was all of these various stages of fracturing and breaking off. I mean, that happened at various intervals for a reason, because there was more to it than just the money piece. There was,
You would own you would absolutely lock up the state of Texas with Dallas.
You'd have the West
and Houston.
You'd have some of the West, at least with Colorado, not the whole West, not the West Coast. I know geography.
Nebraska's not a huge market by any means, but they still,
But it's a
even
brand.
after so long of irrelevancy, their numbers are always good.
But I would love to know that. Yeah, like if you could just, if some TV exec out there could had a calculator capable of determining such a thing. But yeah, what would the old Big 12 be worth in today's TV money? That'd be
fun. We could ask
interesting
maybe
to know.
when we have one of the, whether it's Jim or Bob or Patrick Craich, we'll get them on with that. All right, so a couple of things before we take Paul's top 5 to close out the week. This is from Hayden. Had 4 $5 super chats.
Wow.
While y'all are doing these interviews over the new yes, thank you. I want to pull up an idea for a topic. I think it's not talked about enough when you cover the Big 12. The topic is, what new rivalries will these teams make within the new conference? I think now one of the responses, and I think it was, I don't know who it was, but they said, man, rivalries take time. Now, there could be elite big-time championship games that create rivalries, but they do kind of take a little bit of time, or as I use that word too much, you have to marinate a little bit.
I need you to make a note that we also didn't do the TCU versus A&M schedule from a year ago. So you might want to put that down for Tuesday. We can make that we can schedule that segment. We can do that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
We'll take last year's TCU team and go through last year's A&M schedule. This is
like
post
the way you're
Jimbo's
telling me what to
comments.
do.
Well, I want to make sure that we do it, because
right, SEC, okay, I got
said
it.
it yesterday, and then
TCU.
today we're at the end of the show. But I think
we've had
that'll
a hell
be
of a show too.
I think that'll be a fun segment. So, anyways, I think Baylor BYU is starting to get the seeds planted for that. Just having played each other here recently and having some similarities as religious institutions, and seem to have a bit of a bond that's already started to grow a little bit. But yeah, I do think those things take time. I don't think you just stick 1 and 2 together. But there's thoughts about like West Virginia and Cincinnati. Will that jump up and be one, or any other number of combinations? But yeah, I think that'll take like maybe a couple contests to have a close game where you feel like it was a bitter result and you're angry about it and you don't like that head coach now and you root against that team for a reason. Like that stuff has to happen more naturally. So I think that'll take a little bit of time.
Yeah, there'd be some that maybe early on they play in huge games. Like it ends up being deciding games that could create something in a hurry.
I just can't wait for the time, though, that 3 or 4 years from now, because a team has lost to one of the new ones 3 times in a row, you could hear, and this is just random, a West Virginia fan going, God, I freaking hate Houston.
Yeah. Well, in Houston,
they lose to Houston.
They're like,
Houston will have theirs right away with the Texas schools.
Iowa State's never once thought about UCF in their life.
No.
And then they're going to be like, just stupid John Rice Plumlee.
Stupid national championship banner with
Gary, did you get that last email I just sent? We're going to do this one and then we'll take a break. And Paul's top 5 to close out the week. See if you can get that one up or not. I got a direct message. It's can't defeat nature, Natur, because of numbers, but you can't defeat nature is the Twitter handle. And it's from one of our viewers, one of our listeners. And I tell you what, I love it when I go into my DMs or email or even from the site. and there are questions of topics or what we've discussed to take it to another level or discuss it on the show because you've been watching us. We appreciate that so very much. At Paul Catalina, all of our names just straight out on Twitter, at Paul Catalina, at Craig Smoak, at David Smoak, and we appreciate that. So this is You Can't Defeat Nature. Good interview with Max Olson, David Craig, Paul Sikkim, 365. If I'm not mistaken, a player class action suit got us to the point in NIL. It will probably take the threat of a fan class action suit to stop tampering in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I don't know much about anything legalities, so I don't even know if that's possible. But yeah, it would take I don't know. It may take an act of God at this point. I mean, honestly, to put anything, within parameters, because every argument seems to have a counter that you don't really have an argument back for. I mean, again, everything NIL, you can have an argument for 7 hours, and then at the very end just go, well, the coaches can do it, so why can't the player? And then it's just like the whole thing's wiped out because you don't have a great answer for it, but except for the fact of, well, they have contracts. Well, then what does that wade you into? That wades you into the waters that none of these college administrations want to wade into, which is what? Players as employees with regular contracts and benefits and guarantees and all those types of things. So yeah, it's I don't know what it's going to take, but certainly when, who was it? The UCLA O'Bannon, when all that got started up. I mean, years ago at this point, years and years ago. We kind of knew where it was going, but now we've kind of arrived at that place and all that preparation time, and it's even wilder than I think it was anticipated of being, and it could get even wilder, and I don't know, to answer your question of if there's anything really anybody can do about it outside of the act of God or the act of the government, which is what they're clearly banking on.
Here's my legal advice. If you're ever going to fight a lawsuit so why can't people own their own name, image, and likeness if they sign an athletic scholarship to go to a school? And your argument is essentially because
that's the way it's always been.
Yep.
Hey, one quick note, Oklahoma and Texas will play in the softball championship. The game has been moved to noon tomorrow because of rain and issues that they, of course, have dealt with all throughout most of the country, but also up in the state of Oklahoma area. All right? You had one more thing to add? This is 365 Sports, and Paul Catalina's Top 5 is next.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302. too.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession?
We selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have, a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 teams hardest to predict in 2023 when it comes to over and unders. And this kind of wraps up the over-under series this week. So I got all these numbers from VegasInsider.com. It kind of aggregates all these things. And so let's start with number 5. Ole Miss at 7.5. This is a team that, look, Jackson Dart might have won this job out of spring. He might have improved. They always do well with transfers. On offense, they've got Quinshon Judkins. But, I mean, you could convince me that this is going to be a huge surprise run in the SEC West this year. Or after the first 3, they play Tulane in the second week, so that could be a tough one right off the bat. So after, then they play Georgia Tech, they play Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, and then in kind of this Auburn, Vanderbilt, A&M, Georgia, UL Monroe, and Mississippi State, you could convince me that they'll go under that and be maybe 7 wins or 6 wins because they might not be good enough. But I can't peg it.
I think Lane Kiffin's, it's not like they're elite, but I think he's got them humming pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, you could also convince me that if one thing goes the wrong way for them, yeah. Okay. But they've got depth at quarterback. That's for sure.
Yeah, they do. That, yeah.
So, maybe I should, pick the over on this one. Number 4, Houston at 4.5.
And Judkins is a badass. He's really good.
He's just fantastic. Houston at 4.5. They, losing Alton McCaskill really, makes you think that it's going to be hard for them to get to 5 wins this year. UTSA's on the schedule. They're not going to be a slouch right off the bat. They're at Rice, TCU, Sam Houston, Tech, West Virginia, Texas, Kansas State, Baylor, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, and UCF to end the season. They just, there's where are you going to find 5 for sure out of that?
Well, Again, it's easy to say, well, they'll win 6 or they'll win 7, and then what you have to do is take the schedule, pick who's going to win or not, and then see what your records are at the end. I cannot fathom that they will be like 4 and 8. Maybe that's just not me paying attention. So I would say I think they're going to be I think they'll get just enough to a bowl to get to 6 wins and be a bowl team.
Yeah, we do. We do go by the schedule week by week and go over that, and I've got them at like maybe 3 guaranteed wins.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why it's hard to peg.
Are you picking them over UTSA right this very moment? I'm not.
Nope.
I'm not. I don't care about Zachary Franklin being gone. They got their quarterback back, who's a 6-year, NIL bring back. That was a huge coup to get back there for Jeff Traylor. And Franklin's a loss, but they're going to have some weapons around Frank Harris. Like, I have no doubts about that. They're going to fly around. I think that could be a loss for them right out of the gates. But, you think they'd beat Rice and Sam Houston, but all the Big 12 matchups, who the heck knows?
Sam Houston won't be a gimme against that no matter who they were playing. Yeah.
There's no gimmies outside of, I guess you could say, probably Rice. And that's even a road game. But
I just think that they're better than we think as far as what they have on their roster, Yes, McCaskill being gone, but he wasn't part of it last year. Smith can either help you or hurt you.
Yeah, but they lost Tank Dell.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I just feel like there is enough in the cupboard for them to be a bowl team, and it won't be easy. They'll have to beat up and upset somebody, but I'll just say they're going to get the 6. But this is your top.
I have my doubts. I might go over 4.5. But I wouldn't if the number was 6. I'd really have to sit here and struggle with that.
Okay.
But 4.5, yeah, I'll give them 5 wins. But beyond that, my confidence starts to rapidly decline.
And I don't think this is an indictment on Dana Holgorsen and the roster. I think this is just
crap or nothing.
I think this is just they've hit this coming into the league at the not the best time for their roster.
Okay.
Had they done it a year ago when they've got Clayton Tune and Tank Dell and, when they thought they were going to have a healthy Alton McCaskill.
Well, but they recruited those guys, so why can't they have just some that are just younger?
Just not this year, I don't think. Yeah, I think that's the thing is they would have been better off to have those veterans rolling in.
Okay.
Like UCF does right now.
Justin R. Houston spent the last 2 seasons playing the bottom teams of the AAC. They play better teams in the Big 12 next season. Good luck to them.
Yeah,
all right.
We'll see. Number 3, UCLA at 8.5. This was a really good team last year, but they lose Zach Charbonnet. They lose Jake Bobo. They're one of their better receivers. They lose also DTR, their quarterback. So they've got to replace all that, and they might replace their quarterback with a true freshman, Dante Moore, who is very highly sought after, but he's still a true freshman. And Chip Kelly's done really well, but the first 2 games off the bat are Coastal Carolina and San Diego State, not slouches. Not slouches at all. Coastal's not a team I really want to play early in the season with Grayson McCall coming back.
Don't they have a new quarterback?
No, Grayson McCall's back. He tried to leave.
A coach?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they don't have Jamie Chadwell, but
Chadwell's at Liberty now.
Yeah.
But, still, they're going to have Grayson McCall. I think UCLA wins that game, but, it is a schedule that gives me pause given all that they lost to go over and predict 9 wins for them. Yeah, especially in a year where the Pac-12 is going to be as loaded as it is expected to be at the quarterback position. I think that's an extra degree of difficulty that wasn't as present last year. But now is very obviously the key storyline of the entire conference this upcoming season. So, yeah, I'd put them under and have much more confidence in that than over. But, I think Chip Kelly will be okay and they'll do okay. I can't say 9 wins right now.
They don't have Oregon. No. So there's one team but it's not like Oregon State's not really pretty good. They were very competitive.
That's the 3 game. That's the 3 game stretch. I think is going to be interesting for them. Is at Utah, Wazoo at home, and Oregon State, because that's the stretch of the 3 most experienced quarterbacks coming back, the 3 most experienced rosters coming back. So that'll be interesting to see if they navigate that really well. Then things are going fine.
San Diego State might have a little something to say in week 2. They who knows by then where they're going to be as far as what's coming up in the future at conference. Okay,
Number 2, Louisville.
I wanted to say this else about UCLA. The second half of their schedule is pretty dadgum weak, though.
Yeah.
If they start off well, then the second half of the schedule, they can mow through that bad boy outside
Colorado,
of USC.
Arizona's, yeah.
It's not that tough outside of USC in the next to last game. All the other games, I'd expect them to be favored in 5 of their last 6. And, that includes Colorado, who we have no idea. Dillingham and ASU, that's going to be one that I think is interesting.
Especially late in the year if they get some momentum
how
going.
Good they might be by then.
Yeah. Number 2, Louisville. Year 1 of Jeff Brom, the prodigal son, has returned to Louisville, and 8.5 wins. That, to me, they've got Jack Plummer transferring in at quarterback. He knows the system, but I wonder. Georgia Tech, Murray State, Indiana to open the year. Boston College, that one's you've got a chance right there. Okay, probably should be 4-0, but at NC State, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, Duke, and let's not forget Mike Elko has Duke on the up right now. Virginia Tech, Virginia at Miami and Kentucky. To me, to get to 9, that might be a little tough. You can convince me 8. You convince me 7. But 9, I think, is going to be tough in that schedule year 1 for Jeff Brown.
Like to say Louisville. I just enjoy saying the name. Louisville.
Does that give them over 8.5 wins or under 8?
I say under. Oh, I'd say under.
I think they're going to be pretty good, but I do understand the pause to go 9. 9 wins is a lot of wins, man.
Yeah.
That's not an easy, people would, throw around Baylor is win 8 games this year. 9 games. Do you understand how much of a leap they have to make to win 8 or 9 games compared to what they did last year winning 6? That's a big puddle to jump over. So, yeah, I mean, 9 wins is a lot to go over there, but I do think Louisville will be okay.
Yeah. Number 1, and I just say this for Paxton, Texas at 9.5.
Got one.
9.5. And I said this because they are a tough team to peg whenever it is. This should be an over. This should be a 10-win team this year. Based on their roster, based on everything that's been going on, the way they're starting to trend. But the minute that you start to think that Texas has turned the corner is when something weird happens and they go back to who they've been for over a decade now. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, absolutely, this should be a 10-win team in control of the Big 12 Conference on their way out the door. They're also going to have a tremendous bullseye on them on their way out the door as far as wherever, like they already get it bad enough from the opposing fans wherever they go. But this year might be a little, extra hot sauce on that, and that's why they're so tough to peg. But this is not just this particular year. They have worked on being tough to peg since 2010.
All right. Paxton got one. First time in a month and a half, but he got one of the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, they're polarizing, and they'll, generate a lot of conversation in this remaining offseason, as they already have throughout this offseason because of all the moves they've made, and rightfully so. I mean, they are set up very well for next year. Oklahoma, we have no idea how good they will be, and we saw how ugly that got last year. Granted, Dylan Gabriel didn't play in that game, but it's not like things just dramatically improved for Oklahoma over the rest of the season. So the one threat that you knew was a threat every year and that you're probably going to be an underdog in the game more often than not is not quite the looming threat that it once was, right? So you take the Oklahoma, part of things out of the equation. That'll still be a big game and all that, but they're just not as intimidating as they were, the last few years. So you look beyond that, like, yeah, K-State was good last year. TCU was good last year. There will be teams that improve, but anybody that you say, like, oh, they've got better talent or they've got a better overall package than what Texas has going on right now, I don't see anybody. I really don't. And Tech should be included in that as well. Tech, K-State, TCU, I mean, those are certainly teams that'll give them a run. But, I mean, if they're gonna have the type of year that they're expected to have every single year, why is it not this year in particular with all the way the stars are aligned, at pretty much every position, the stability of coaching, Sark's not on a hot seat or anything like that. Final hurrah in the Big 12, favorable schedule. I mean, why would you not believe, other than why every year they are the butt of a lot of jokes, or seemingly, every other year they're the butt of a lot of jokes, is because we hype them up and then it comes to go time and they don't quite live up to that hype because the hype got so big. But I do think that this offseason, the hype is legitimate and that there should be huge expectations for them. Not necessarily they have to be in the playoff or it's a bust, but dang right, I think they should win 9 games or more. And if you wanted to go over, I could believe that, because outside of Alabama, I don't see that game where you go, oh, yeah, that's a loss.
If in fact, it was 10, what would you do?
I wouldn't go 10 because I just think that's a really high number, and that's not enough room for error. But, winning 10 games, yeah, I think they can win 10 games. Going over 10 and saying they're going to go 11-1, I don't feel as confident in predicting that.
Yeah,
I guess 11 – I guess because you're counting the bowl, though, right? Or conference? No, this is just regular season.
See, that's what I asked you about it 3 days ago. You didn't give me an answer. Is it the 12 regular season games? Does it include a conference championship? Does it include maybe a bowl game or playoff game?
For my predictions, I've gone on this is the regular season this entire time. But we probably do need to clarify that in the future, because those extra couple games that you play really do matter. Because, that's Baylor winning 12 games versus winning like 10.
Who?
When Baylor won 12 games 2 years ago, they won 12 games because they played in a bowl game and a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I think that I can't wrap my head around Texas being less than 9-3, but I can see 3 teams popping them because injuries can happen, and not even like long-term injuries. I'm not saying that somebody tears their ACL and is out for the year, but you have 2 key players out with bum ankles for the wrong 2 weeks.
And it may not even be at the positions you think.
Yeah.
One thing about the Big 12 schedule, I know we got to go. I got to go pick up my car. But when you got the schedule before and you saw Oklahoma on it for 20 years or so, it was like gulp up until when Stoops took over. So it's not gulp, I don't think, this year. And we will see if it is and if they're anywhere close to what they've been before. All right, Garrett Ross, thank you. Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter. Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW will be the 4 different segments with those of the incoming 4 schools to the upcoming and new Big 12. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, happy Mother's Day, everybody. I'm David Smoak, and good night.